Welcome to New Zealand Radio Shows number 1. New Zealand radio shows are scarce to come by, and some of the sound in these episodes are not 100%, but they are still worth listening to. The first show we have is called The Magic Carpet. We hope you enjoy it.
As this is the final broadcast of Your Magic Carpet, on behalf of Lintas Proprietary Limited, I would like to extend our thanks to the program and technical staff of the NZBC for the cooperation they have shown to us over the 7 years this program has been broadcast. Your Magic Carpet, program number 34 for broadcast August the 20th.
It's the Pepsodent Show, Your Magic Carpet. And here to fly you near and far is your compere, Selwyn Toogood.
Thank you. Thank you, Christchurch, and good evening, New Zealand. Tonight's broadcast of Your Magic Carpet comes from the Theatre Royal in Christchurch, and this will be the last broadcast of this program. And I think it's appropriate that it's being done for the Air League of New Zealand, the Christchurch branch of the Air League of New Zealand, whose interest is, of course, aviation, whether it's civil aviation or military aviation. Any matters to do with aviation, that's the Air League's interest. And over the past 7 years, since we've been doing Your Magic Carpet and earlier the Bird's Eye View of the World, I have had a very close association with the aviation industry. And this is one of the things I'm going to miss very much, my association with the industry, because I've enjoyed it very much indeed. But let's get on to the job in hand. Let's play Say When. Of course, in Say When, our competitor can win a return air. This is the last chance he'll have of winning that wonderful trip to Hong Kong, to the glamorous East, by Qantas and BOAC. The last chance he'll have of winning the trip by Teal to Sydney on the Blue Ribbon service with accommodation at the Mona Hall Hotel in Darling Point, just down from King's Cross. And travel within Australia between Sydney and Melbourne, or Sydney and Coolangatta, or Sydney and Brisbane by Ansett ANA on their Golden Jet service. The last chance of winning a trip to Fiji by Teal on the Hibiscus service. The last chance to win a trip to Norfolk Island. Could be travel around New Zealand by NAC. Your name is, sir?
Ian Mackay.
And what do you do, Ian, in Christchurch?
I'm a wool buyer.
A wool buyer. Well, Ian, the best of Commonwealth luck, as my memory serves me. You had a success with us in the Civic Theatre some years ago when you won a Glamour Prize.
I think so, yes.
Ian, you know the rule. We go through Say When. You answer the question, and you get the destination. Ready to play Say When? Right. To Hong Kong. Should have come in early, you see. Here's the next one. To Norfolk Island.
When?
When? Here's a trip to Sydney. Now then, Ian, have you ever been to Sydney?
No, I haven't, no.
Not been to Sydney. If you win this trip to Sydney, who'll take it, Ian?
I think my wife would take it.
And who would go with her?
Well, I think possibly I will go with a member of my family.
I see. Well, of course, you know, if you win the trip to Sydney, you stay at the Mona Hall Hotel, and you also have the opportunity of flying within Australia by Ansett ANA on the Golden Jet service. How do you feel about answering this question?
Not too well. Before it comes.
Well, as this is the last broadcast, you can have the trip to Sydney for whoever you'd like to take with you, Ian.
Thank you very much.
There it is. Ian Mackay reached over and said, "Thank you very much." Your customers wouldn't have heard it.
You definitely save money when you buy Pepsodent in the new big family size.
Yes, big family size Pepsodent gives you more for your money, lasts longer. Family size is the best size to buy Pepsodent, the toothpaste specially formulated to give you whiter teeth.
Pepsodent cleans teeth whiter because it's the only toothpaste containing Iridium, the registered name for sodium lauryl sulfate. Iridium chases away dulling film to get teeth really white enough to reveal the natural beauty of your smile.
White, 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 your teeth will stay.
Tyrian chases film away.
Brush with Pepsodent every day. Pepsodent, my darling.
Cool, mint fresh Pepsodent gives you whiter teeth, reveals the natural beauty of your smile.
Get Pepsodent in the new, big, money-saving family size. Marketed by Knights New Zealand Limited, Petone.
Well, you know, it's not often we have the final broadcast of a program, so we've got to make every post a winning post. Let's get on now, Ted, to your New Zealand holiday. Winning travel within Australia, or what am I talking about? To be able to win trips between any two New Zealand airports served by NAC, and this is one of the things I'm going to miss very much, is meeting these very charming and attractive hostesses when they're off duty. And tonight we have Abby Knopf. Come on in, Abby, and meet our customers. Abby, where do you come from?
I'm from Christchurch, Selwyn.
From Christchurch, and you live with the family down here, do you? Or are you flatting?
I'm flatting here in Christchurch.
Flatting. Where do you come from originally?
I've lived all over New Zealand. It's very hard to say just where I come from.
What part of New
Dunedin's my home.
Dunedin's your home. What part of New Zealand do you like to live in best?
Christchurch.
You see, these people they have these hostesses who are diplomats, first, last, and always. Abby, would you be good enough to introduce our competitors, please?
Certainly, sir.
Thank you.
This is Alex Barnett.
Yes?
And Alex would like to go to Auckland. She's got a wedding to go to up there in September.
In September. Well, Alex, come onto the microphone. Is it your own wedding?
No, it's my husband's sister's wedding.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it was your husband's wedding. Have you been to Auckland before?
Yes, I'm from the North Island.
Oh, you are an Aucklander, are you?
No, I'm from Mangakino, actually.
From Mangakino?
Yes.
And how do you like living in Christchurch?
I like it very much.
What brought you down here?
Well, my parents shifted down here.
Uh-huh. Your husband a Christchurch man?
No, he's from Rhodesia.
Well, and where did you meet? In New Zealand?
In Mangakino, yes.
Well, what was a Rhodesian doing in Mangakino?
I don't know. He was on the project, the Maraetai Dam there.
I see. And what's he doing now in Christchurch?
He's fitting and turning in Empire Rubber Mills.
Has he been to Auckland?
Yes, his parents are up in Auckland.
So that's a double reason that you'd like to go.
Yes.
What are you going to do with the little ones?
We haven't any little ones.
Oh, that fixes that, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, of course, you'll fly by NAC. You'll fly from Christchurch to Auckland. You can either go direct in an hour and 55 minutes, or you can come through Wellington, stop over and have a look at our little city. As a special treat tonight, NAC have sent along a travel bag for each of our competitors. And we also have a suitably inscribed genuine biro ballpoint pen for our competitors. And, of course, no competitor goes off this program without receiving Pepsodent toothpaste. And as it's our final broadcast, you can have your trip to Auckland without answering any questions.
Thank you very much. That's lovely. And thank the sponsors, too.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
That brings us to the last performance, the last contest for New Zealand's most coveted radio quiz prize. The return air trip to London for two, jet travel all the way by Teal, Qantas and BOAC. Yes, we come to the last performance of Gateway to London. Mrs. Dorothy Traynor from Dunedin scored 16,687 miles. And now we have a young schoolteacher from Waimati, Mr. Warwick Morris, who's competing against her in the grand final for Gateway to London. Warwick, you've appeared in our programs before, and you've chased us on this last tour of New Zealand, all over the South Island. For the last 6 weeks, you've chased us wherever we've been in the hope of winning a trip to Hong Kong. You haven't been successful, but if you are successful tonight in pushing Mrs. Traynor off the top rung of the ladder, you will have the opportunity of going to Hong Kong. For what reason?
Well, last month, I had the opportunity of listening to an address by Dr. Turpin, and as a result of that, I had quite a long chat to him afterwards. And we realised what good work he is doing on his project Concern in Hong Kong, and well, quite frankly, I realised that I haven't done a great deal to help others in unfortunate circumstances, and I thought that would be one way of trying to help to get over there, perhaps during 6 weeks' holiday, and give him a hand together with my wife.
So you'll take this trip to London, and you'll devote most of it to going to Hong Kong at your own expense, staying in Hong Kong at your own expense, to help Dr. Turpin, yourself, and your wife.
That's correct, Owen. Yes.
Now, you're a teacher, so how could you, have you discussed how you can be of an assistance?
Yes, he doesn't want assistance in teaching, but he has quite a number of other fields that we could help him with.
As long as you're prepared to take your coat off and get stuck
That's
in.
true, yes.
Whoever wins this will be the 52nd and 53rd person, respectively, to have gone on a trip to London through Gateway to London. I've just worked out some figures roughly. 54 people by the end of tonight's performance would have been to London. Over 500 trips have been won around New Zealand. We haven't got a record of how many people have had trips in the Pacific Basin to Hong Kong, to Sydney, to Fiji and around there. But over the 7 years, quite a number of people have won trips. They've won other prizes, the Hoover products and Cintiq lounge chairs. And you can still win one of those tonight, of course, if you do well. You've got 16,687 miles to beat. Let's get started on the way. From New Zealand to Sydney, 13,133 miles by Teal Electra Jet Prop. Who wrote the Foresight Saga?
John Galsworthy.
John Galsworthy is correct. Sydney to Singapore, 4,040 miles by Qantas 707V jet. Which American state is sometimes referred to as the mother of presidents, because 7 presidents were born there?
I don't know, but I'd say Virginia.
He doesn't know, but he would say Virginia, and he gets 4,040 miles on the way. Why did you say Virginia?
I can think of several presidents that were born there, but certainly not 7.
Well, there was Washington, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Harrison, Tyler, and Taylor. From Singapore to Calcutta in India, 1,801 miles by BOAC Comet 4 jet airliner. What is a diphthong?
Diphthong is TH, the two consonants.
A union of 2 vowel sounds to form a continuous sound, as in isle, toil, pound.
That's correct, yes.
Or 2 characters used to represent a single sound, usually a vowel, but sometimes a consonant, as in here, head, both. Okay, we're all right. Both gives it to us. Diphthong. You don't think I'm being pedantic, Warren?
No, not at all.
It's just that I've got to read these answers most thoroughly, and you were so firm about it. The TH is a diphthong, and both, there it is. But fortunately, by reading through it, there's no argument about that. From Calcutta to Karachi in Pakistan, 1,354 miles. Spell instantaneous.
INSTANT ANEOUS.
1,354 miles on the way. From Karachi to Athens in Greece is 2,700 miles by BOAC Comet 4 jet airliner. What is a cumulative vote? A cumulative vote.
Well, it's a term that I haven't heard before, but I would say that a cumulative vote would be the type of vote that would be received by a candidate for the American presidency. As we have at the present moment, they're trying to get votes to become the candidate, and they have a number of meetings, and as a result of such, the votes are gradually accumulated or stockpiled until, in the end, one person has the majority.
Not a bad effort, Warwick, but I'm afraid it's not right. It was a good try. Now, a cumulative vote is the system by which every voter is entitled to as many votes as there are persons to be elected, and may cast them all for one candidate or distribute among the candidates as he thinks fit.
I see.
Now, this is not the way the Americans do it with their primaries and what have you. That is not a cumulative vote. Bad luck. You've broken your record. You had answered 4 questions without a miss. But if you go on and answer the rest of them, you will take a Hoover-Matic washing machine back down to Waimate with you.
White's shining white, coloured sunshine bright. That's a wash to be proud of.
That's the wash you get with Rinso.
With Rinso's richest, softest suds and extra cleaning action, you get a wash that's shining white, sunshine bright, and extra satisfaction.
With Rinso in your washing machine, you can be sure of wonderful results every time, because there's extra washing action in Rinso. Those richer, softer suds keep on working till they've removed every trace of dirt. You can be sure of a wash that's really, thoroughly, completely clean.
You've never seen whites more shining white. You've never seen coloureds more sunshine bright.
Get your whites shining white, your coloureds sunshine bright. Use Rinso in your washing machine.
Rinso, Rinso.
Rinso is recommended by all leading washing machine manufacturers.
From Athens to Frankfurt in Germany, 1123 miles. What in Spain is a duenna?
Oh, just that's a type of food.
No, it's an elderly woman who acts as governess and chaperone in charge of young girls. Remember it now?
No, I don't know it.
Frankfurt to London, 401 miles by BOAC Comet 4 jet airliner. What name is given to the skin at the base of the fingernail?
Quick.
Bitten to the quick. Cuticle. Cuticle and quick the same thing? Thank you. London to New York, the old Burroughs, Ted, our last night of pressing the old Burroughs adding machine. London to New York, 3455 miles. The Murray River is the chief river of Australia. Through which state or states does it flow?
I'll say South Australia. New South Wales. It's a toss-up between those two.
It actually flows through New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia, and in fact, for a large length of it, it is the boundary between New South Wales and Victoria. Can't allow you the 3455. They might have been very critical, that mileage. New York to San Francisco, 2566 miles. Mrs. Traynor is in the wings. I'll bet she knows the difference between a quick and a cuticle. Who were Queen Elizabeth I's parents?
Henry VIII.
Henry VIII is correct.
And Anne Boleyn.
And Anne Boleyn, it was a 1 in 5 shot, that's right. 2566 miles, San Francisco to Honolulu in Hawaii. 2401 miles by Qantas 707 V-Jet. Yalta was the setting for a very important conference during World War II. Where is Yalta?
I believe it's in Turkey.
No, sir. It's in the Crimea. It's on the south coast of Crimea.
Yes, it is too. That's quite true.
30 miles east of Sevastopol.
That's right.
Got it now?
Yes, I know it. So I can see
Bad luck. That was 2401. You could have done with that. Honolulu to Nandi in Fiji, 3173 miles. I haven't got an idea. You people sitting at home who for years have written down the mileages and counted up, you would know how Warwick's getting on. Mrs. Traynor doesn't know. I don't know. Ted hasn't got a running score there. Anything could happen tonight. It's between these two competitors. This is 3173 miles. What is the correct name for the Leaning Tower of Pisa?
I can only say that's the Campanile of Pisa town.
Of Pisa what?
Town.
Of the cathedral.
Oh, yes, I see.
Oh, something's happened to you, Warwick. You started off from Nandi to New Zealand is 1326 miles by Teal Electra jet prop. You're getting near the end of the journey just as we're getting near the end of the journey for your magic carpet. What is pemmican? Pemmican.
Oh, it's dried meat, usually used in North America years ago. Buffalo hunters and so forth.
Food for long voyages, particularly in Arctic and Antarctic exploration, consisting of lean meat, dried, pounded, and pressed into cubes. That is correct. 1326 miles. All right, now let's have a quick look back over the score while we see what you've earned. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that's about enough, particularly as our final broadcast head for Warwick to earn for himself a Cintiq lounge chair, regardless of whether you've overtaken Mrs. Traynor or not. There it is, the Cintiq lounge chair for you, and here is the final score of Warwick Morris. He had 16,687 to beat, and Warwick Morris of Christchurch scored 12,821, and there were 2 of those questions you should have known, Warwick.
Yes, never mind, so on.
And they would have been enough to put you in the lead, but thank you very much indeed, and we're sorry that you were not successful. Thank you very much, Warwick Morris. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
well, thank you very much indeed, Selwyn. And I would first of all like to thank you, seeing it as your last appearance in this particular show, to thank you on behalf of all the many competitors who have tried to win prizes, to thank you very, very much indeed. I think you're a wonderful compere, and you make it so very, very easy for the competitors. And I'd also like to thank the sponsors for the opportunity of appearing.
Thank you very much, Warwick. And now, ladies and gentlemen, my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Dorothy Traynor from Dunedin. A little better than she was when she came in her wheelchair in the Dunedin Town Hall. Mrs. Traynor, it must have been quite an ordeal sitting there in the wings.
It was.
You were torn between your 2 desires to win this trip yourself, which of course is a natural desire, and for Warwick Morris, I'm sure that you must have associated yourself, as the audience have, with him and riding him all the way. How would you have gone on this particular set of questions tonight?
Oh, some of them seemed difficult and some seemed easier than mine. I couldn't really say.
And what about the ones that he answered and the ones that he didn't? Were you about neck and neck?
I think so.
Well, Mrs. Traynor, you've had a little time to consider what you're going to do if you win this trip, because you were fairly well in the lead, and let's face it, if you must have had some confidence in yourself. When will you be able to get away?
Well, our daughter's getting married in August, so I couldn't go before then, but I'd like to go right after.
Well, that's fine, and I'm sure that you and your husband, you'll take your husband. How long will you go for?
Can I stay as long as I like?
You can stay up to 12 months. The ticket is valid for 12 months.
Oh, about 6 months, I think.
About 6 months. Well, why not stay there and have some of the English summer?
Yes, I'd like to.
Well, we do hope that you have a wonderful trip. You will be the 53rd and 54th person to have gone to London through Gateway to London. Some of them are in the audience tonight. Mrs. Goff, the daughter of Mrs. Carson of Mayfield, who won this trip earlier this year, came back to say what a wonderful trip they had. They're only away for a month, but she said she had a wonderful time, and I'm quite sure that you will too.
I'm sure we will.
And I know that the other 27 competitors who've been through this ordeal will be knowing just exactly how you feel. Congratulations, Mrs. Traynor. And we hope your foot is better. We hope your foot is better before you get on the way.
I'm sure it will be.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, Mrs. Dorothy Traynor.
So may I take this opportunity of congratulating Mrs. Traynor. I think she did very, very well indeed, and I know that she'll have a wonderful trip to London.
Thank you. A nice sporting gesture, Warwick. Thank you very much, Warwick.
White's shining white, coloured sunshine bright. That's a wash to be proud of.
That's the wash you get with Rinso.
With Rinso's richest, softest suds and extra cleaning action, you get a wash that's shining white, sunshine bright, and extra satisfaction.
With Rinso in your washing machine, you can be sure of wonderful results every time, because there's extra washing action in Rinso. Those richer, softer suds keep on working till they've removed every trace of dirt. You can be sure of a wash that's really, thoroughly, completely clean.
You've never seen whites more shining white. You've never seen coloureds more sunshine bright.
Get your whites shining white, your coloureds sunshine bright. Use Rinso in your washing machine.
Rinso, Rinso.
Rinso is recommended by all leading washing machine manufacturers.
Ladies and gentlemen, this brings to the end a program which has been on the air in some form or another for the past 7 years. And if you will bear with me for just a moment, there are some people I particularly want to thank. My association, as I said earlier, with the aviation industry has been one of the greatest pleasure. Our own local airline, NAC, have never faltered. We've asked them for odd things from time to time. They've always come to light, and I'm going to miss my association with NAC very much indeed. With our other airlines, with Teal, Qantas and BOAC, I want to thank them publicly for making it possible for Brian Petrie and myself to take the trip up to the East last year. We had a wonderful experience up there, and we enjoyed it very much indeed. I want to thank my sponsors. I sometimes make all sorts of remarks about them, and snide remarks. I know I'm pretty safe these days because they've all got television sets and they don't hear. But it's all been in fun and banter, and I've enjoyed working with them very much. They've always, if we've asked them if we can do something special, they've always said, you go right ahead and do it. This makes it so much easier for people like ourselves who think a little bit differently from the hard-headed businessmen of today. It's been a great pleasure over the 7 years when we were with Birdseye in the early days, and latterly since we've been with our cosmetic company, Knights New Zealand Limited. I want to thank the Broadcasting Corporation, because without their cooperation, some of the factors of these shows wouldn't get on the air. I want to thank my own staff. They put up with a tremendous amount. Ted Thorpe, who's been with the show for 7 long years. He was a recruit with the radio unit when the show first started in Wainuiomata, his hometown, and Mrs. what was her name? Ted very nearly won the trip the first night. First time out, Ted was there. I want to thank the theatre staffs all through New Zealand who've always made us terribly welcome. They've always been very friendly and warm and kind to us. And I want to thank the organizations for whom we work. I know that these organizations say, well, you've raised a lot of money for these various charities, but I want to thank the organizations. They do a tremendous amount for us. For us to get these shows into gear, to get them on the road, to do our advanced publicity, would take a great deal of work. We'd have to send people around the country. As it is now, we just wrote to the Air League and we said, jack it up, book the theatre, do the advertising, we'll walk into the show that afternoon and we're away. They've been a great help to us. I'd like to thank, among our sponsors, Fisher & Paykel, for making the prizes available of the Hoover products. And last but not least, I want to thank you people, the audience that have turned out wet weather, cold weather, foggy weather, hot, filthy nights when everybody was just in a bath of perspiration. You've given us tremendous support over the 7 years. And then, of course, the listeners at home. I'm going to miss this program very much indeed. I do want to read, or Ted is going to read to you, a telegram that we received today. I'll read it because Ted is busy there. On the occasion, this is the telegram that arrived from Wellington this afternoon. On the occasion of your final Magic Carpet show, please accept very best wishes from all of us in NAC. We regret this. This will conclude our happy association with your Magic Carpet stop. NAC, together with your thousands of listeners, will greatly miss you. Stop. Kind personal regards, D.A. Patterson, who is the General Manager of National Airways Corporation. Appreciate that telegram very much, Doug. And customers, that is it. Our listeners at home, I'm sorry that I won't be with you on Thursday nights from now on. We will have It's in the Bag for a little longer, so join us on Tuesday night. We won't be doing our shows for you in Christchurch again. I'd like to take this opportunity of saying goodbye to our Christchurch people. And always enjoyed coming to Christchurch. You've always been a warm and friendly audience. And now it's time to say goodbye.
Roads to Nowhere was written and produced by Prudence Gregory, assisted by Peggy Roberts, for the Overseas Program Exchange Service of the NZBC, a radio program about the early days in central Otago, with recollections by miners, wagoners and blacksmiths, who lived and worked along now half-forgotten roads. Interviews by Prudence Gregory and Graham Anderson, possibly recorded circa 1956, are interspersed with short excerpts from David McKee Wright's ballad, At the Foot of the Old Dunstan Track, 1897, put to music by Graham Anderson and performed by the Dunstan Trio.
Roads to Nowhere. The New Zealand Broadcasting Corporation presents a program sketched from the memories and traditions of the men and women of Otago, the golden province of a century ago.
Now the sheep leap around and the larks sing above, and the creek ripples down at the back. But the loud peal of laughter will never be heard at the foot of the old Dunstan track. All the days when the country was young, the boys, the rollicking days of old.
In gathering material for this program, we left the tarsy old highways of central Otago and followed instead half-forgotten old roads like the Dunstan Track. And we found there were still miners, wagoners, men and women of the high country who remembered the days when the country was young.
The days of the first of the gold.
I'll tell you a good story. I came down to Loburn one night when Bob Haig had the Loburn pub. I left early. I was up about 3 o'clock, and I pulled out at 5 and went away into Cromwell and had breakfast in Cromwell. And I got done what I wanted to do and fixed up, loaded up, and back to Loburn. I was back before dinner, and when I went down to the pub after I fixed the horses up, I met Bob Haig. And Bob says to me, he says, "Where have you been this morning?" "I've been to Cromwell." "You wait till the wife gets you." Oh, I thought, what the devil have I done? I'd done nothing. I couldn't think of anything I'd done that would annoy anybody. So anyhow, when I went in for dinner, and Mrs. Egg looked through the door, and she seen me there. So in she come. "Where you been this morning?" "Oh, you've been to Cromwell." "Where'd you get your breakfast?" "Oh," I said, "I had breakfast in Cromwell." "Never you leave my hotel again without having your breakfast." But I said I was away at 5 o'clock. That meant breakfast at 4 o'clock. I didn't want you to get up and get breakfast for 1 at 4 o'clock in the morning. "Not your lousy money I want." But she said, "You don't leave my hotel again without having your breakfast. If it's 1 o'clock in the morning, you tell me the night before. Then you'll have your breakfast before you go." Well, I thought that was fair enough.
Until the 1860s, New Zealand had been making solid progress both economically and in population growth. But the gold strikes of the next decade held far more spectacular advances. Men poured into the country in their thousands, and the fever drove them to settle some of its roughest terrain, central Otago. The Dunstan Mountains, the Clutha River, the Shotover River, Mount Aspiring. Strong, swift rivers and deep gorges, craggy mountains, almost impenetrable forests, hot in summer, yet bound with bitter frost in winter. Towns sprang up, Clyde, Cromwell, Queenstown, Alexandra, and roads began to appear.
The miles are on and the luggage stowed and the passengers climb aboard, and the coach is away on the long straight road that leads to Patterson's Ford. There are 3 in the box and 2 inside, and the houses are flying by, and all is sun and a hazy light under the spectre sky. The road is hard as an asphalt track and as smooth as a bowling green, and away in the west are the snowy heights with the rolling hills between. It's westward, westward, westward many a mile, over the Tussocky Flats and down by many a station and many a town where we're rolling westward, westward mile by mile.
Westward, by the Eldorado, Danzies, the Dunstan, the Pig Route, or the Styx. These were some of the early roads of central Otago, roads whose names sound strange to modern ears. Mostly they belong to history now, but you can still find in them an echo of the men of the early days, the men who came for grazing land, for room to breathe, and above all, for gold. To get it, somehow they scratched a precarious network of trails and tracks across 10,000 square miles of tussock. And as they set their boots towards the western lakes and mountains of Otago, they marked the way they'd come, and sometimes their mood and their fortune, with the names they gave to the difficult paths they trod. The Nevis, Blackball, the Serpentine, Skippers, Ham and Butter, Dry Bread, Pig and Whistle, and the Buster.
Yes, the Buster. By 1877, a depression had settled firmly over the country, and it refused to lift until the mid-90s. The gold had virtually petered out, and had to be mined and crushed or dredged with heavy machinery. Wool again became the country's main export, and men clung grimly to the land and their sheep stations as the only hope of salvation. Life slowed almost to a standstill, and the roads, they became roads to nowhere.
That was never surveyed. It was just cut by, well, it was made by bullocks, that was about all.
In the first place, they'd be surveyed by a bullock driver, and they all certainly looked like it, because there was nothing but a lot of bends and twists from start to finish. You just wound yourself up going one way, and you wound yourself up coming back the other way. That's what it was. Follow the leading bullocks.
Poor roads. In the wintertime, they'd be frozen solid, but then in the spring when the frost come out, parts of it, you'd be up to the axles almost. You had to keep in the ruts. Well, if there was more than one wagon, one would take the lead for a while to open it up, and the others would follow. They'd turn about that way.
How would you keep a wagon under control on a place like that?
You had your horses, what we call sharpened. They had big toe pieces on and sharp heels. That gave them a grip. But the horses, they got to know the road as well as you did. 1903, at Lake Hayes, I had to stop there for the snow. I was coming along to Gippsland, and in the morning there was 2 feet of snow there. The gum trees, plantations on both sides of the hill, it was just like cannons going off all night, the cracks. And the noise of the birds fluttering around, frightened.
That was the trees cracking with the
cracking with the weight of the snow. It was tremendous, heavy snow.
From Arthur's Point School into Queenstown, I think was the coldest road ever I drove on. Absolutely the coldest road. When you got that southerly wind blowing up the gorge. Mind you was driving. You had to drive every inch of the way. Well, your foot was up on the brake, and you had hold of your reins. You see, you was driving all the way, and you was driving straight into it. That was a cold blooming show, that. All the horses didn't seem to mind it much, but by Jove, I did. That was a cold place. Very cold place. In a frosty morning.
You had to feed on the road and water on the road. And in the wintertime, you never got down the gorge here in daylight. What we call Siberia, that was from the top of the Bag Hill to the Gentle Annie Bridge. 3 months a year, there was never any sun on it. Just hard, frozen. If there was snow, it went into ice. It was beaten down to ice.
Wild winter on the frozen hills, the rocky peaks, the icebound rills, the lowering red of early morning, the evening with its misty chills. The feathery snowflakes earthward flying, the wintry sunbeams faintly dying, the icy fingers in the gorges, the harsh-voiced birds on low-wing crying. Without the stormy winter night, within the peat fire leaping bright, tobacco incense softly curling, the play of wit and fancy light. Ah, who would give such joys as these for sunny summer's dusty breeze, while loud and long the tempest thunders, and every pleasure knows to
Well, I never went over when there was very much snow on the ground because we knew better than to do such a thing. If we went out while the weather was fine. But in the winter time, well, in the winter of 1878, was it? Yes. There was 2 feet of snow on the flat all winter. The snow started to fall on the 10th of May, and it snowed for a week. And then it cleared up and froze. And the snow lay there all winter. And then in the spring, the end of September, it came rain. Terrible flood there was.
How did you get on for food and stores? How often did they
Oh,
come?
well, they used to provide food in the autumn to last over the winter. They were miners mostly. And they would wash up their claim, you see, at the end of the season and go away and sell their gold and bring in their provisions.
You were at the Nevis for 60 years, Mrs. Ritchie. Were they good years?
Mostly, yes. Some good and some bad. Sometimes we had a lot of snow and sometimes we didn't have much. But as the years went on, the snow, I think, became less. We didn't have the severe storms. And we never had such a storm as the 78 storm. Thousands of sheep were snowed up and lost, you know. Buried up in the snow.
The ice that would carry a horse and drive in a very deep part of the river, I've seen it as hard as that. Not for a long while now, though. Oh, it might be about 6 inches. Good black ice. But the trouble is you never know where there's perhaps a spring of warm water, and the ice is very thin in patches. Doug Tannehill one time crossing from one paddock to the other on the ice. We walked across and he slipped through. And I said, you were pretty lucky, Doug, getting out of that. He says, there's no luck in that. He says, I just walked round from the bottom till I saw where I came through, and I popped back up through the same hole.
I think there were harder frosts those days, harder than what I've ever seen now. The fogs were the biggest trouble. I remember going 6 weeks and we never saw the sun. And when the sun came out, hooray, everybody said. There's the sun.
Did the weather affect your work in the blacksmith shop?
No, the colder it was, the better you got on.
Was the blacksmith shop a friendly place to go to? You know, would you meet lots of other wagoners?
It was a great place. It was a great meeting place for everybody. A lot of people, townless people, always go to the blacksmith shop. There we are.
On a wet day in the country, farmers couldn't do any work. Teams were idle. They often took a spare horse in to be shod, or perhaps plough socks to be laid, and small repairs to be done. The blacksmith shop was quite a little gathering place on a wet day. Oh, you got all the news of the district. They talked about all sorts of things, the weather and the crops and the price of oats and price of wool and so on. I can remember often seeing children looking in the door of the blacksmith shop on their way from school and seeing the flying sparks and smell the smoke from the burning hooves and so on. We do 12 horses a day. That's 12 horses, 48 shoes, that's right.
And how many of you were in the shop?
3 of us generally. That's when we were doing the like of that. But if a man can shoe a horse in an hour, I can tell you he's losing no time. He's working. He doesn't make the shoes then. When you're slack, you make shoes for stock. Well, when the horses come in, you've only got to heat them up and knock a clip on them and fit them and nail them on. The biggest shoe ever we put on was 22 inches. A great big flat-footed horse. The shoe measured 22 inches before we started to it.
Is it true that they ever had to shoot bullocks in the early days at all?
I never shod one, but they were shod, wasn't it? Shoes were put on 2 halves because of cloven foot, you see. You couldn't put a shoe right round it. The bullock has had a cloven hoof.
Did you have to repair wheels at all, put new rims on?
Well, that was the biggest job of the lot, I think, was retiring them. The tires were 4 inches wide and an inch thick. Well,
three of us, we could take the wheels off at 8 o'clock in the morning. We'd have to cut the old tyres off. We'd get a 4x1 bar and measure it up with a wheel, take it and roll it in the bender, weld it, and then we had a special fire for heating them and put them back. Well, we'd have those wheels back on the wagon at 1 o'clock. That was going all right. You didn't mean to make any mistakes. Every man knew his job, you see, and it went like that. It doesn't sound as though you'd have much spare time in the blacksmith shop. Oh, you might get to break your heart. You'd be making shoes for a week and end sometimes. You can know what it is like doing the one job every day. And I've seen us go and cut off 100 shoes off a bar, set to and make them. You got sick and tired of the look of the shoes, you know. Did the cold affect your handling of the metal much at all? Well, I've seen it that bad. It would stick to your hands for a start, but I don't know what was it. After you've been working a while, you never took much notice of it. Mr. Wishart, was your family connected with this trade before you? Father came out from Scotland. He was a blacksmith when he came out here and built his own shop. And the shop's there yet today, and that's getting away back about 80 years, I think. You'd have some very heavy horses to stand up to in those days, wouldn't you? Oh, some of the horses were something awful.
I remember I used to have the job when I was a boy of taking my father's buggy horses to the blacksmith, and it was 5 shillings for a buggy horse those days. More for a draft, 6, 7, and I believe in some cases for big horses, 8 shillings. I always believed the blacksmiths made very little. It was hard work. They often had long hours. They sometimes, when it came to 5 o'clock, they'd have 2 or 3 horses still to shoe. They'd perhaps been brought for a number of miles, and they just carried on till they finished them. But I don't think ever blacksmiths made very much. Very few people paid cash on the spot. It was a regular thing with the farmers to pay once a year after they got their harvest check. As I remember, the blacksmiths only sent their accounts in once a year and stood out of the money a long time.
They must have often missed out altogether.
Yes, I expect they did. I expect they did.
Hatbox, he was an Indian. He'd come to the blacksmith over here, and Arthur Keegan was our blacksmith, and Hatbox wanted his wheels tired, the tires cut. So that was all right, you see. Arthur said he would do it. And Hatbox had promised to pay him cash. However, when the wheels were done and put back on the bus, Hatbox was off. He wasn't going to pay. So he had his 3 horses. He had 3 good horses, and they were tied up in the smithy. And as he got the harness on one and went to put in the other, Arthur Keegan would take the harness off, that one, and in the finish he had to pay.
What we loved was working the bellows and getting the fire to work and getting it all sparking all over the place. They used Newcastle coal for that. And the old blacksmith always, in working the shoes, took a shot at the shoe and then another one at the side of the forge so that you got a different noise. You got like that, rather. He couldn't explain why, but that was just one of the tricks. You did it. You hit the shoe and then you hit the iron.
How late did you have a blacksmith on Shag Valley?
Oh, until the end of the First War. When you have teams, you've got to have blacksmiths. But it's almost an extinct trade now.
You wouldn't get a boy to start blacksmithing today for all the tea in China. They've got more under their hat nowadays. They won't work hard like we did. The majority of wagons used in this district, were they made locally?
Well, the biggest part, I would say, would be made locally because they had some very good tradesmen in here at that time. Very good tradesmen. Coaches were the same. We made them here in Alexander. Bob Wilson was wheelwright and Jack McIntyre was the blacksmith, and we made a coach from nothing to the finished article.
Well, what colour were these coaches? Pretty gay?
Principally red. Red with a yellow line on them and transferred all round with Cobb and Co. and the royal coat of arms on them. I've seen us put 9 coats of paint on them. Put a coat of paint on them without any dents in it. It was rubbed off with pumice stone. When you put on the finishing coat of a bright red, it was all rubbed down with horsehair. And there was 2 and sometimes 3 coats of varnish put on over the top of the final coat. And there were already 8 or 9 coats on it. Some of the biggest part of them rubbed off. But when you looked at the coach, the transfers and the lining on it, you'd have thought they were way back in about an inch.
Why did everyone like to get on the box seat with the driver? Was it a good place to sit?
Better view. More so
for the sake of seeing the country they were travelling over more so than anything else, I think.
But wouldn't this make them very cold in the winter time?
Oh, they were rugged up. Well, oh my God.
There's a green grassy slope by the boundary fence with the scrub bushes sheltering round. A hollow that shows where a building has been and their broken black bottles are found. A water race too that's been dry for long years coming out of the creek at the back. It's all that remains of the shanty that stood at the foot of the old Dunstan track. Oh, the days when the track was young, boys, the rollicking days of old. The days that have never been sung, boys, the days of the first of the gold.
It was quite a sight to see the gold coming into the banks in the mining towns. The banks, of course, had weighing machines for the gold. But I've seen the boxes being carried in places like Cromwell and Clyde. And of course that made an enormous difference to the roads because the wagons had to take up the material. There was no railway up in those days. It's quite a sight. Way back in the 90s when we drove right through from us, right through the lake country at one time. Saw quite a lot of the old mining days then. But the gold escort was always recorded in the papers. The gold escort arrived from the such and such with so many thousand ounces. Usually 2 troopers on the box. Gold came down in special boxes, and the troopers sat there with their rifles at the ready. The gold was unloaded, of course, for the night. The local hotel had a special room for it, cellar place with no windows, hole in the floor to put it in. And one trooper walked till midnight, and the other took up the sentry after that. One day some of our people were shooting up the road. They looked up and found themselves looking in the business end of a rifle. It wasn't at all what they'd expected. They thought that, troopers were just ornamental.
What about bushrangers? Was there much trouble ever?
Not much. There was a period when one of the Australian bushrangers came over. The Kelly gang, of course, was over here too. One of the Freelands had told me that on one occasion they had gold in the wagon, probably taking it down for the miners. And they saw these unknown horses coming along. There was plenty of mud about, and they didn't like the prospect very much, so they slipped the box of gold out of the wagon, shoved it down into a rut, eased the wagon over that particular rut, and when the strangers came up, and they were the bushrangers, the wagon team was very busy with its shovels. They all carried shovels, of course, trying to dig the wagon out of this mire. People were always being stuck in the mud and breaking down. You get caught at dusk or dawn, and you get tired and hungry.
Had it not been for the stations in the early days, I think that a great many people would have died of starvation.
My goodness, the swaggers that I used to have. I lived at the foot of the hill. I lived there for a long time, and the swaggers I used to have. But I didn't accommodate them in the house, because you never knew what kind of class they were. We had a big feed house, and there was plenty of sacks and things there that they could make themselves comfortable. And we used to put them there to sleep with. And I told them never to light a fire. Come and I'd give them a billy full of boiling water for their tea.
I know at one station down on the Maniatoto, there's a great big oven outside the old house where the station baked bread for the miners. And everywhere the stations shared out their supplies. And, of course, many of the early people had to live on mutton till something else came in.
They went in for bartering, didn't they?
Oh, yes. Till well on in last century, my father took fruit out, and for the fruit he would collect eggs and butter, and they would be brought into the store or the hotel. It was often a 3- or 4-way barter before you got back either the money or something else you wanted.
The miners up in the McRae's Flat, Nenthorne area, there was a rush there, and they used to get their supplies over this track. The butter and the eggs came from certain farms, and so they called it the butter and egg route. And the name is stuck. It's still that on the county map.
What did a wagoner take with him for a boil-up?
Oh, an oil can. Cut a wee hole in the side to put the fire in, and they used to hang their billy in that. They were a very quick way of boiling the billy. You'd always see one of them hanging on the wagon, and they always had a good tucker box with them when they were carting across country.
There the teams double-banked when they tackled the hill. Few drivers would tackle it now. They never had dreamt that the heavy black scrub to the right would be under the plough. Oh, the days when the track was a road, boys, the rollicking days of old. When the bullickies came with their loads, boys, the days of the first of the gold.
How did you wagoners keep your feet warm in the winter?
Oh, clogs. Well, wooden clogs. They were fleecy lines and had a good, about 3/4 of an inch of wooden sole. And they were hard to walk in, but, we used to put nails in them, of course, to give us a bit of grip.
How did you stop your wagon slipping on the ice?
Oh, I used to have a shoe I used to put on when I was driving in frosty weather, or just a piece of iron. And you run one wheel onto it, and it's chained onto the middle stay of the wagon. And, of course, it stops that wheel's not revolving, and there's a bit of a stud underneath the shoe that grips. It's got all the weight of the wagon on it. And that mostly held just some icy stuff.
Not always.
Not always. The ice was very thick and very hard. It would just slide on it.
One morning I was going over the hill, but the weather didn't look nice. So I thought there was a rock on the side of the road. I put that in the bus. So I would just have to tip it out and put the chain on, you see. I wouldn't have to leave the horses. So I get off down the hill, and by Jove, I didn't get far before I got it. Fine snow and hailstones, as big as tapioca. So I go down to the pinch above the long flat, and the horses turned their tail on the storm, you see, and made off the road. So I got them stopped. Although I was only a young fellow, I knew I couldn't leave the mail. I had to stop there with it. I couldn't hold 3 horses in the storm while I tied the mail on. It was too big a job. So I thought, I'll have another go at it after I got my hands warm. I drew the whip out then, and I used that when I turned the head to the storm, and into it I went. Well, I went down the next 2 pinches pretty fast. So anyhow, I never used the stone. I stopped away down the hill a bit further, I tipped it out and left it, and I went down without any stone. I sort of risked my neck on it, you see. When I got down home, I was well froze up. Mum had to come out get a basin of hot water to thaw my head out. I was all ice. And all the horses were froze up and everything.
Now, in the summertime, how did the horses cope?
Oh, well, the dry summers, it was pretty tough on them. You couldn't get water. No animal's any good without water. If they don't get adequate water, they just fade away.
Was there any slack period for wagoning at all?
Oh, not back in those days. You had as much as you could do.
I noticed on this flat here there's a tremendous amount of sand. Did that trouble you much?
Oh, it troubled you for a while. It was pretty tough. The horses knew the road.
Did you ever lose your way?
No. I've had to stop for an hour sometimes.
We got lost in fog and rain. It was an awful night, and it was black. We didn't know where we were. We were frightened if we could have got into bad swamps on one side, and we could have gone right over the face into the Mannerburn on the other. So we just stopped and tied the horses up. We had nothing to eat, nothing to drink, no blankets. And we just got underneath the wagon and made ourselves as comfortable as we could in the wet grass. Daylight we were off.
What sort of spirit was there among the wagoners?
Oh, it was good. We were all help one another. If they got into trouble, got bogged, you'd see them all immediately come to your aid with all their horses and pull you either back or forward, whichever was the easiest.
Oh, I found it a very carefree life. I'd served my time as a trade in town before I went to the country. But I took to the country life very, very quickly and found it a very, very healthy, carefree life. Hard at times, long hours, and hard conditions occasionally, but taken all through, a very healthy, happy life.
Good job. I like the horses. Anything with horses, I was right. As long as I had a horse.
There's a green grassy slope by the boundary fence with the scrub bushes sheltering round. A hollow that shows where a building has been and their broken black bottles are found. A water race too that's been dry for long years, coming out of the creek at the back. It's all that remains of the shanty that stood at the foot of the old Dunstan track. Oh, the days when the track was a road, boys, the rollicking days of old. When the bullickies came with their load, boys, the days of the first of the...
That was Roads to Nowhere, a program about the early days in New Zealand. It was written and produced by Prudence Gregory, assisted by Peggy Roberts. David McKee Wright's ballads were set to music by Graham Anderson, who also led the Dunstan Trio. The storytellers were miners, wagoners, men and women of the back country in New Zealand's South Island, all of whom were interviewed by Graham Anderson and Prudence Gregory. The program was issued by the Overseas Program Exchange Service of the New Zealand Broadcasting Corporation.
The following is some nostalgic examples of New Zealand radio advertising.
Now here's a home permanent which gives you a wave that defies dampness, dryness, sun, heat and cold. Defies the elements.
Is that the new Richard Hudnut Home Permanent?
That's the new Richard Hudnut Home Permanent with Neutralizer Booster. The new exclusive Hudnut scientific discovery that actually weatherproofs your wave. Gives you a wave you can set and forget.
Just set it and forget it. What a joy.
But only Richard Hudnut has this remarkable Neutralizer Booster. That means a wave so soft and yet so strong, you can set it and forget it. Neutralizer Booster in Richard Hudnut Home Permanent gives you curls that are softer yet stronger, stay lovelier and natural-looking longer, through changes of weather and repeated shampoos. And for all this, you don't pay a penny more.
Imagine a wave you can set and forget. A Richard Hudnut Home Permanent.
Prepared for Richard Hudnut Limited, 21 Federal Street, Auckland, and obtainable from chemists and department stores. Now, the new and improved Richard Hudnut Home Permanent with Neutralizer Booster.
Does your Home Permanent droop in damp weather? Will you waste precious time on pin-ups every night? Are there days when you can't do a thing with your hair? Then here's exciting news for you from Richard Hudnut. At last, a home permanent that defies the elements, defies dampness, dryness, sun, heat, and cold. That's the new improved Richard Hudnut Home Permanent with Neutralizer Booster. Not just another neutralizer, but a new and exclusive Hudnut scientific discovery. Neutralizer Booster leaves your curls so soft and yet so strong, they defy the elements. For a wave that's actually weatherproof, a wave you can set and forget, the new improved Richard Hudnut Home Permanent with Neutralizer Booster.
Prepared for Richard Hudnut Limited, 21 Federal Street, Auckland, and obtainable from chemists and department stores.
A few bright ideas for brighter rooms.
John, know anything about painting a kitchen?
I know there's always plenty of grease to get rid of before you start painting.
Yes, but colour. Any ideas on kitchen colour schemes?
Well, you'll probably need plenty of light in the kitchen. Colours that brighten the room. Why not select two harmonizing colours from the Ratex range?
Ratex? Now that's a bright idea.
As bright as the colours on a Ratex colour chart. From the minute you start brushing on the magic of Ratex to the moment you finish your last stroke, you'll marvel at Best Paints who make Ratex. You'll love the way it smooths out into a glossy finish that leaves no telltale brush marks. And Ratex colors are smiling colors, colors that bring happiness home to stay, because that bright, smooth finish lasts as if it were built right into your walls and furniture. Ask your nearest Ratex supplier about brightening your rooms with Ratex. Remember, too, it's a Best Paints product, and you can't buy better than Best. Best Paints Limited Auckland suggests a few bright ideas for brighter homes.
You know, I was having a good look at the house the other day. It's been years since I had it painted, but it still seems as bright as ever.
That man we had certainly knows how to paint.
Of course, he's a master painter. When you combine a master painter with Best Paint, you must get a first-class job.
Wise words. And you'll find Best Paint a sound buy for all exterior woodwork. Best Paint protects your valuable property like a watchdog. It scares off rot and decay and is so easy to work. It's fascinating to watch Best Paint smooth out, spreading its good-looking protection over your property. As each brush stroke is applied, you know with confidence that Best Paint is there to stay, there to protect and be admired. But find out more about Best Paint from your dealer. It's well worth finding out from experience why you can't buy better than Best. Best Paint Limited, Auckland, suggests a few bright ideas for brighter homes.
What are you doing, Peter?
You're watching a man paint a fence.
Why are you doing it? It looked all right.
Maybe it looked all right, but you didn't see all the bare patches. I'm giving this fence the Best Paint treatment. Here, take a brush and lend a hand.
2 hours later, we see two proud people admiring their newly painted fence. Listen.
That does look better, Peter.
Better? It looks best. You know, Mary, you can't buy better than Best Paint.
There's a wise husband for you. He knows how to paint, and he knows a fine paint. Best brand paint. How would you like your fence, garage, or trellis work to shine with a wonderful freshness? A freshness that lasts and lasts. Then see your dealer and ask him about Best Paint. He'll give you the full, satisfying facts about Best. For all exterior jobs, you can't buy better than Best.
This is Dick Playfair, your self-help shop reporter. Are you finding those children pretty insistent, clamoring for drinks these warm days? Well, it's pretty hot work when you've got all that energy to burn, but the drink problem is one you can solve easily. There's a self-help deluxe fruit extract special this week. A bottle of deluxe fruit extract for only 1 9/9 halfpenny. Made up into a cordial, it provides dozens of refreshing drinks. And here's another timely self-help special, English herrings in sauce. A big 14-ounce tin of best quality English herrings for only 1 8/8 halfpenny. Serve them with salads on hot days, and if there's a cold snap, you've got a standby in your cupboard that will be a top favorite served hot. Remember, put these self-help specials on your grocery order this week. Deluxe fruit extract, 1 9/9 halfpenny, and English herrings in sauce, a big 14-ounce tin for 1 8/8 halfpenny. At your self-help shop, where you save every day. Hello, home savers. This is Dick Playfair, your self-help reporter. There's nothing like having a standby in the cupboard that you can use equally effectively on cold or hot days. So there's a self-help special this week of English herrings in sauce. A big 14-ounce tin for only 1 8/8 halfpenny. That's real self-help value. You can serve these English herrings as a delicious hot dish, or cold with salad, or just on their own. With warmer days here, you'll be finding the family calling for cooling drinks. So here's another timely self-help special. A bottle of Self-Help's deluxe fruit extract for only 1 9/9 halfpenny. You can quickly make your own fruit cordial and get dozens and dozens of really fruity drinks for the whole family. Make sure of these self-help specials that are right in season this week. English herrings in sauce, deluxe fruit extract at savings from Self-Help, where you get so much more quality for so much less. Hello, girls and boys. This is your Uncle Dick from Self-Help. Getting used to the warmer weather now? It's a lot more fun when you can play outdoors, isn't it? But it's thirsty work, and I'll bet you're always dashing inside for a cooling fruit drink every now and then. That's why Self-Help are making a special offer this week of deluxe fruit extracts. Out of a bottle of deluxe fruit extract for only 1 9/9 halfpenny, you'll get dozens and dozens of glasses of a real fruity drink. Orange, lemon, raspberry, whatever flavor you like best, for when you feel so thirsty. And it's a jolly good thing to take with your school lunch, too. A small bottle of fruit drink to wash away the dust of the playground and get the taste of chalk out of your throat. Remind Mum to put it on her self-help order this week, a bottle of deluxe fruit extract, 1 9/9 halfpenny. It's just one more self-help saving. Hello, home managers. This is Dick Playfair from Self-Help. I suppose you're getting right into the mood for summer now, when we really appreciate delicious light desserts. Self-Help are right in season with their specials this week. First, Jelly Crystals, all well-known brands and all your favorite flavors. At Self-Help this week, your choice of popular Jelly Crystals, only 9 cents a packet. This is the time to stock up for Christmas. And here's a special in processed cheese. You'll be serving cheese every day, and at Self-Help, you'll save money on processed cheese this week, 8-ounce packets for only 1 5/5. Striking a festive note, be sure to get a pound of Self-Help's special Christmas confectionery mixture. a tempting assortment of chocolates, jubes, marshmallows, toffees, and all the sweets that Self-Help know you like best. Self-Help special price, 2 and 8 pence a pound. By the way, Christmas Club members, now's the time to turn those savings into extra Christmas delicacies from the large stocks of Self-Help's Christmas Fair. This is Dick Playfair, your Self-Help reporter. We're getting pretty close to Christmas now, and your holiday time. And if there's one item on your menu frequently these summer days, it's jellies. Just at the right moment, Self-Help are making a special offer of jelly crystals. All the popular brands and all the flavors you like best, only 9 pence a packet at Self-Help this week. That's value, and it's right in season. Christmas confectionery mixture is the second special, a tempting assortment of chocolates, jubes, marshmallows, toffees, to appeal to all the sweet-tooth members of the family. Self-Help special price, only 2 and 8 pence a pound. The third special is processed cheese. You'll be using it every day for lunch, tea, savouries, hot dishes for a tea-time treat, cut lunches. At your Self-Help shop, the special price of processed cheese is 1 and 5 pence for an 8-ounce packet. These are all saving specials at Self-Help, the firm that brought prices down and keeps them down. Hello, youngsters. This is your Uncle Dick from Self-Help, and I'm bringing you some good news if you've got a sweet tooth. Self-Help have a Christmas confectionery mixture special this week with all the varieties you like best. You know, chocolates, jubes, marshmallows, toffees, and all the rest, all mixed up and all delicious. Self-Help know exactly the right sweets that make a mixture you'll really enjoy, and it's only 2 and 8 pence a pound. That's quite a big bag of this delicious Christmas confectionery mixture for only 2 and 8 pence at Self-Help. Better get Mum to put it on our Self-Help order this week, because I'm sure she'll want some too, and Dad. Tell Mum, too, if she's a member of the Self-Help Christmas Club, that now's the time to turn those savings into Christmas delicacies from the big range of Christmas foodstuffs at Self-Help. This is Dick Playfair, your Self-Help saver, bringing you the good news. Here's a summary thought to give a welcome touch to your salads and light summer meals. Choicest King Oscar sardines. And you know there's nothing better than those gleaming silvery fish with the famous King Oscar label. And because they're your favorite sardines, they're a timely special at Self-Help this week. Large tins, only 1 and 9 pence halfpenny. As it's salad time, you'll certainly be needing vinegar soon for mayonnaise and so on, and the time to buy it is this week, when it's a special at your Self-Help shop. 26-ounce bottles of best DYC vinegar for 1 and 6 pence. Another Self-Help saving special is the Christmas confectionery mixture. 1 pound of delicious assorted sweets, all your favorites, for only 2 and 8 pence. By the way, Self-Help stocks of Christmas delicacies are large and varied, so Christmas Club members, now's the time to turn your savings into Christmas delicacies. This is Dick Playfair from Self-Help, wishing you a load of sunshine and bringing you some sunny news about this week's Self-Help specials. First, a saving special in sardines, the choicest King Oscar, the sardines that are just a perfect size and the finest flavor. You'll serve them often this summer, and you'll appreciate this timely saving special at Self-Help. King Oscar sardines, only 1 and 9 pence halfpenny a large tin. Put a few tins away for the holidays, too. And here's a bargain in confectionery at Self-Help this week. Self-Help special Christmas confectionery mixture, your favorite chocolates, jubes, toffees, and marshmallows, a full pound of delicious assorted confectionery for only 2 and 8 pence. A staple item you're using all the time is vinegar. And this week, Self-Help have made a special of best DYC vinegar. You always need it, so buy it this week at the Self-Help special price, 1 and 6 pence a 26-ounce bottle. You save more every week at Self-Help. Hello, boys and girls. This is your Uncle Dick from Self-Help. I suppose no one knows better than you just how close we are to Christmas. And I'll bet you're in the festive mood already. Well, your old friends at Self-Help know pretty well that there's one thing high up on your list of wants, and that's sweets. So Self-Help are making a special offer of their Christmas confectionery mixture, a really popular assortment of all the kinds of chocolates, jubes, toffees, and sweets you like best. And you get a big 1-pound bag of this delicious assortment for only 2 and 8 pence. That's great value, isn't it? a big 1 pound bag of Self-Help's confectionery mixture for 2 and 8 pence. You'll be pretty popular when you turn up with these, I can tell you. Better remind Mother, too, that now's the time to take those Christmas Club savings and turn them into delicious Christmas fare. For Self-Help have a large and appetizing array of Christmas delicacies all ready. This is Dick Playfair of Self-Help here to address the housewives of New Zealand on the subject of the shilling. The humble shilling, the simple shilling, achieves new glory this week at Self-Help. For Self-Help have set out to show you, in dozens of different ways, how far a shilling goes at Self-Help. We call them shilling bargain buys, and they go like this. 2 cakes of Self-Help sand soap, 1 shilling. 11-ounce tins of tomato soup, a shilling. And 4 pounds of cooking salt, a shilling. Hold your breath, we've only started. Other Self-Help bargain buys are tins of Gravis, packets of Greg's Seameal custard, or a pound of split peas, any and each of them 1 shilling. And besides all these and more shilling bargain buys, there's special value on Self-Help confectionery and Self-Help biscuits in cellophane bags for 1 shilling. If you can save like this with shillings, how much more can you save when you buy everything at Self-Help? To the home managers of New Zealand, a grand good day from Dick Playfair of Self-Help. Yes, a good day for shopping and for saving from Self-Help. For Self-Help counters are laden with bargains, shilling bargain buys. Thrifty examples of the buying power of the humble shilling. Here you are, madam. 4 pounds of loose cooking salt, Self-Help price, 1 shilling. Another bargain buy, half a pound of shelled peanuts, just a shilling. Stock up on Self-Help sand soap, 2 cakes only a shilling at Self-Help. Greg's Seameal custard for tastier desserts, just a shilling a packet. And I've hardly started yet. Split peas, just a shilling a pound. Gravis, it makes the meat, a shilling a tin. Yes, these bargain buys, and all the others waiting for you at Self-Help, are a practical demonstration of how much value Self-Help always offers. Shop and save at Self-Help this week. Self-Help time again, boys and girls. But before we listen to more exciting adventures of Superman, this is Uncle Dick, who wants to introduce you to Super Bob. Super Bob? Why, that's the humble shilling who's been taken out, polished up, and given a place of honor at Self-Help this week. Yes, Self-Help shilling bargain buys this week set new standards in values. Super Bob, for instance, buys an 11-ounce tin of tomato soup, or half a pound of shelled peanuts, or 2 packets of Sheba jellies. Once again, a shilling buys 4 pounds of loose cooking salt, a packet of Greg's Seameal custard, or 2 cakes of Self-Help sand soap. It's just amazing what a shilling will buy at Self-Help this week, or any week for that matter. There are lots more shilling bargain buys that Mother will be interested in, including 2 chocolate tablets for a shilling. And she can take home a shilling cellophane bag of lovely crisp Self-Help biscuits or Self-Help confectionery. More savings from Self-Help. It's more exciting than a brand tab. It's better than a jumble sale. It's the range of shilling bargain buys at Self-Help this week. And this is Dick Playfair, friends everywhere, to tell you all about it. Yes, Self-Help have dramatically displayed for you the magic purchasing power of the humble shilling at Self-Help, that is. 1 shilling at Self-Help this week, for instance, buys you a tin of Gravis, or an 11-ounce tin of tomato soup, or 2 packets of Sheba jellies. That's only part of the story. That busy shilling gives you topmost value in a packet of Greg's Seameal custard, or a pound of split peas, or 2 cakes of sand soap. We're getting value and savings for our shilling, aren't we? And note these special values: savings on Self-Help confectionery in cellophane 1 shilling bags, 2 chocolate tablets for a shilling, and deliciously crunchy Self-Help biscuits in cellophane bags for a shilling. If you want to see your shillings go further, come to Self-Help this week and save. Hello, Mrs. New Zealand. This is Dick Playfair to bring you some reassuring news about our old friend Bob. You know, Bob, 12 pence, the nimble shilling. It's reassuring because people have been saying that the Bob isn't what it was. Obviously, they haven't been to Self-Help this week to see the shilling bargain buys. Oh, it's wonderful what a shilling will buy for you at Self-Help. For instance, Greg's Seameal custard, just 1 shilling a packet. That's a Self-Help saving. Or 2 cakes of sand soap for a shilling. Then there's flavorful tomato soup, 1 shilling an 11-ounce tin. A shilling looks important at Self-Help, doesn't it? Let's go on. Half a pound of shelled peanuts for cooking or snacks, 1 shilling. 2 packets of Sheba jellies, 1 shilling, madam. 4 pounds of loose cooking salt, 1 shilling. And just one more out of lots more, Gravis for tasty meats, just 1 shilling a tin. Those are some samples of Self-Help shilling bargain buys this week. Save with Self-Help, save now. Hello, children. This is Uncle Dick from Self-Help with a question. How many shillings in a pound? Right, 20. Now, if you went shopping with a pound, how could you find 20 ways to save? Anybody know? Yes, that's right. With Self-Help shilling bargain buys that are featured in Self-Help shops everywhere this week. Dozens of lines, only 1 shilling each at Self-Help. 11-ounce tins of tasty tomato soup, for instance, are 1 shilling. You can buy half a pound of shelled peanuts for a nimble shilling. At Self-Help, a shilling buys 2 packets of Sheba jellies, or 4 pounds of cooking salt, or a packet of Greg's Seameal custard. You know how handy Mother finds tins of Gravis. Yes, they're just 1 shilling this week at Self-Help. And in addition, there are special shilling values in Self-Help confectionery, chocolate tablets, and Self-Help's crisp, crunchy biscuits. And there are lots more shilling bargain buys to prove that you save as you spend at Self-Help. Hello, Mrs. New Zealand. Dick Playfair from Self-Help back on the job again. Here's hoping you passed the test of the Christmas festivities with flying colours. I'm not so sure that I did, though with the help of a little bicarbonate of soda, from Self-Help, of course, I managed to get through Christmas Day without permanent injury to my innards. But now to the Self-Help bargains. It's amazing how fast a bottle of cordial disappears in the hot weather, isn't it? Especially when there are children around. But nobody minds the youngsters drinking plenty of cordials, particularly not when they're a weekly special at Self-Help. Yes, this week, every bottle costs you 3 less. All your favourite flavours, too. Now, some quick reminders about holiday needs. How's your stock of jellies, pickles, meat paste, Highland of milk, sauces, custard powder? Those are just a few of the items you'll need during the holidays. Items that sell for less at Self-Help. Cordial greetings from Self-Help Home Managers, brought to you by Dick Playfair. Yes, cordial is the word. And not just one cordial, but a whole range of them. All your favourite flavours. They're a weekly special at Self-Help this week, reduced by 3 a bottle. And aren't they welcome on sizzling days when the sun is scorching overtime? Long, cool drinks of delicious cordial that slip soothingly down parched throats. While we're on the subject of sizzling days, here's a few reminders about summer foods you'll find selling for less at Self-Help. For smooth desserts that refresh as they nourish, jellies, custard powder, tinned fruit, corn flour for blancmanges. Don't forget Highland of milk either. Then for snacks, quick meals and picnic lunches, sardines, herrings and tomato sauce, pickles, cheese, sauces, meat paste, jams and honey. Yes, you'd be wise to pop into Self-Help before the New Year weekend and check on those tasty, lower-priced summer foods. Hello, Mrs. New Zealand. This is Dick Playfair, your Self-Help reporter, calling you for the last time this year. Self-Help hopes that 1950 has been a good year for you all. A year that has added to your stock of happy memories, and one that has added to your prosperity, too. It's a matter of considerable pride to Self-Help that so many of you have become permanent members of the Self-Help family. Customers who continue to shop Self-Help year after year. They feel that your continued custom proves conclusively that they are doing something really worthwhile in their efforts to keep the price of groceries down. Self-Help are looking forward to seeing you all again next year, when, once more, they will offer you the highest quality goods at the lowest possible prices. Until then, this is Dick Playfair, on behalf of every member of the Self-Help organization, wishing you good health, prosperity, and a wealth of happiness in 1951.
The engine scream you will now hear is a Vampire jet of the RNZAF passing close overhead at a ground speed of 560 miles an hour.
To many young men, it is the height of their ambition to pilot such an aircraft as the Vampire jet. or to act as pilots or navigators of other modern types of aircraft, such as the four-engine Hastings or twin-engine Devon.
And it is an ambition that they are realizing today. If you are fit and between 17 and a half and 25 years of age, you may apply to join them in their conquest of the air.
Young men are now required for training as officers in the flying branch of the Royal New Zealand Air Force and as officer pilots in the RAF. Selection is competitive and calls for a high degree of character and ability. But for the right type of young man, it offers a future built on a tradition of service you can be proud to follow.
If you are ambitious, apply now for details of commissioned service as a navigator or pilot in the RNZAF or the RAF. Write today, addressing letters to the Air Secretary, Air Department, Wellington.
The Women's Auxiliary Air Force is now a fully fledged unit of the RNZAF. Today, recruits are required to join this rewarding service for women, a service with tradition you can be proud to follow.
When you become a WAF, you will have open to you careers in 13 branches of the service, including such groups as clerical, supply, driving, telephone operating, the handling of safety equipment, and aircraft finishing.
Rates of pay are at least equal to those in similar civilian occupations, whilst opportunities for promotion are excellent. A complete uniform is provided, and a uniform upkeep allowance of £16 is paid annually.
Quarters are comfortable, and the meals are all that could be wished for. Members of the WAF enjoy a full social life, and recreational facilities are provided on all stations.
If you are between 18 and 40 years, find out exactly what service in the Women's Auxiliary Air Force has to offer you by writing to or calling at the RNZAF Recruiting Office.
Mackenzie's Arcade, High Street, Christchurch.
For over 30 years, the RAF apprenticeship scheme has built up a tradition that is unequalled. A tradition personified by those who have reached high rank in the RAF and RNZAF.
Parents, if your son will be between 16 and 17 on the 1st of February next, consider an apprenticeship in the Royal New Zealand Air Force.
The Royal New Zealand Air Force requires aircraft apprentices to be trained as fitters in the following trades: engines, airframes, armament, instruments, ground radio, air radio, and electrical. These are the most highly skilled and highly paid ground trades in the RNZAF.
Apprenticeship involves 3 years training at the RAF Technical Training Schools at Halton or Cranwell in England, followed by a year's service for the selected RAF unit.
On his return to New Zealand, your son will be a highly skilled young man. His future will be secure. He'll be proud of the life he has chosen.
Discuss the matter fully now at the RNZAF Recruiting Office. Mackenzie's Arcade, High Street, Christchurch. Fit young men between 17 and a half and 30 years are eligible for trade training in the Royal New Zealand Air Force.
The service needs you, and needs you now.
The RNZAF offers you a secure future in the administrative, technical, radio, or supply trades with liberal rates of pay that rise, for example, to £18.14 weekly for a married warrant officer living at home. Promotion to commissioned rank is also possible.
Service in the RNZAF offers you a new life, a more adventurous life with the possibility of service overseas. Other benefits are
no doctors, dentists, or clothing bills, good accommodation and meals, annual leave on a generous scale with free travel warrants, free sports equipment and facilities.
And the RNZAF offers a future built on a tradition of service which young men can be proud to follow.
Ask for your copy of the booklet, Your Career, the Royal New Zealand Air Force. Write without obligation to the RNZAF Recruiting Office, Mackenzie's Arcade, High Street, Christchurch.
Is that the major overhaul job out there?
Yes, sir.
They just take you up now, sir. Sounds sweet to me.
Ground staff of the Royal New Zealand Air Force take a pride in the machines they service.
For them and their fellow airmen in the administrative, supply, and other trades, this is a satisfying, rewarding career. It offers a future built on a tradition of service which young men between 17 and a half and 30 years can be proud to follow.
Permanent careers are now open in the Royal New Zealand Air Force.
Pay scales are liberal. A single warrant officer living on station can earn up to £15.4 and 6 weekly. There are additional allowances for married men.
Accommodation and conditions are really good. The RNZAF also provides free uniforms, free medical and dental attention, annual leave warrants, and facilities for sports and hobbies.
For full information about your future in the Royal New Zealand Air Force, apply to the RNZAF Recruiting Office.
Mackenzie's Arcade, High...
A stocking is only as strong as its weakest thread. Don't let perspiration acid eat into your new nylon. After every wearing, rinse promptly in safe, gentle, snowflake suds.
Snowflakes are thinner, finer soap flakes that dissolve in a flash and foam up into a rich, lasting lather that quickly eases out dirt and deals gently with threads of delicate texture.
Use Snowflakes for all your dainty washing. Snowflakes will safeguard the pretty pastel shades of your most cherished underwear, blouses, scarves, and preserve as long as possible the silky, supple strength of stocking fibers and the soft coziness of wool.
Ask your grocer or store for Snowflakes, the thinner, finer soap flakes for stockings, woolens, and all dainty garments. Made by McLeod Brothers Limited, Cumberland Street, Dunedin.
It's economical to use Snowflakes for your personal day-to-day washing.
Keep the brake on your generosity when you shake the packet. Using too much is foolish waste. With Snowflakes, thinner, finer flakes that dissolve in a flash, you get a rich, foamy lather right away. A lather that lasts while you squeeze your stockings and underwear to lovely freshness.
A little Snowflakes goes a long way. Make your rule a little and often. Gentle Snowflakes will not harm the daintiest fabrics, and frequent washing is absolutely necessary to protect stockings, underwear, and blouses from the destructive influence of perspiration.
Use Snowflakes for your woolies. A little and often will keep them soft and sweet.
Ask your grocer or store for Snowflakes, the thinner, finer soap flakes made by McLeod Brothers Limited, Cumberland Street, Dunedin.
What kind of stockings did you buy?
Gauge 51.
Sheer. However can you afford it? I wear service weight always.
How dull. Why don't you use Snowflakes?
Sheer stockings are a delight, and there's no reason why everyone should not enjoy wearing them on special occasions. If you want to be economical, the best plan is to give all your stockings more than average care. Always wash them with Snowflakes to make them last longer.
Buy yourself enough stockings and wash them after every wearing in dainty Snowflakes suds.
A stocking is only as strong as its weakest thread. One break, and away it goes in a heartbreaking run. Remove destructive perspiration as soon as possible with safe, gentle Snowflakes. Rinse well and dry away from strong heat. Ask your grocer or store for Snowflakes, the thinner, finer soap flakes for stockings and all dainty garments. Made by McLeod Brothers Limited, Cumberland Street, Dunedin.
You'll get better results with hand basin washing and save money too if you don't use too much soap at a time. A little and often is a good plan. Wash all your small personal things frequently in mild, gentle Snowflakes.
There's no excuse for waste when you use Snowflakes, because these thinner, finer soap flakes dissolve instantly and give a wonderful cleansing lather that penetrates the weave and coaxes dirt out without rubbing. Just squeeze the suds through and through the garments you're washing, then rinse all the soap away. Thorough rinsing is easy with quick-dissolving Snowflakes.
Use Snowflakes for washing stockings, silk underwear, blouses and jumpers, babies' woolies. Snowflakes is safe for everything that will wash.
Ask your grocer or store for Snowflakes, the thinner, finer soap flakes made by McLeod Brothers Limited, Cumberland Street, Dunedin.
Don't be afraid to wash your twin set as soon as it's lost its first freshness, but be careful. Better use Snowflakes. Anything that's washable is safe with Snowflakes.
Treat your next new pair of stockings to exclusively Snowflakes laundry and note how well they last and keep their soft, silken beauty.
Snowflakes are thinner, finer soap flakes that dissolve instantly in warm water and make a generously thick, foamy cleansing lather.
Mild, gentle Snowflake suds are right for all sheer fabrics and delicate shades. Wash woolies with Snowflakes, too, to keep them cozily soft and new-looking.
Ask your grocer or store for Snowflakes, the thinner, finer soap flakes for stockings, underwear, blouses, and all your light personal washing. Use Snowflakes for economy. A little makes a lot of suds. Made by McLeod Brothers Limited, Cumberland Street, Dunedin.
Enough soap is good. Too much is not so good. Use just enough soap flakes to give you a good cleansing lather. Choose Snowflakes, the thinner, finer flakes that dissolve instantly. A little goes a long way, making a lasting lather.
Rinsing is important. Wash out all the soap. That's easy with quick dissolving Snowflakes.
Woolies stay soft and springy when washed with Snowflakes.
The gentle cleansing suds coax out the dirt and never coarsen fibers. Gentle snowflakes help you to make your stockings last longer. Wash them with snowflakes after every wearing. That's the way to keep threads live and prevent the brittleness that causes ladders.
Ask your grocer or store for snowflakes, the thinner, finer soap flakes for washing stockings, underwear, laces, and all your personal finery. Made by McLeod Brothers Limited, Cumberland Street, Dunedin.
Accidents will happen to the most carefully cherished stockings, but most of the runs that start at suspender fastenings are the result of carelessness.
Stocking threads, when they're new, have a certain tensile strength. I mean, they can take it to a reasonable extent when you strain them. But if you let soil stockings wait to be washed, neglect rinsing, handle them roughly when they're wet, or dry them on heaters, the threads become brittle, and when the strain comes, they just snap.
It's a wise and economical rule to wash stockings after each wearing in gentle snowflakes lather. Snowflakes are thinner, finer soap flakes that dissolve instantly in hot water and fluff up into the most wonderful lather.
Snowflake suds are safe for all delicate fabrics. Use snowflakes for stockings, underwear, your prettiest woolies. Ask your grocer or store for snowflakes. McLeod Brothers Limited, Cumberland Street, Dunedin.
You do seem to have the knack for washing woolens. Your jumpers always look better than mine. Tell me what you do.
Well, I have some simple rules. The first is use snowflakes, and don't be extravagant. Use just enough snowflakes to give a good lather. They're very economical. A little goes a long way. Rinse well. Get all the soap out. That's easy if you use snowflakes because they dissolve so well.
A packet of snowflakes, the thinner, finer soap flakes, will last a long time. Just a little gives a splendid cleansing lather.
Use snowflakes for all your jumpers, blouses, underwear, and stockings. Mild, gentle snowflake suds are safe for everything that needs careful washing.
Ask your grocer or store for snowflakes. Made by McLeod Brothers Limited, Cumberland Street, Dunedin.
Coffee made in a minute, the Bushell's way. Yes, no matter what the hour, how pressed you are for time, you can make yourself a cup of steaming, delicious coffee with Bushell's coffee essence. Fragrant answer to a housewife's dream. All you do is add milk or water to a little of this wonderful coffee essence, and you'll have a delicious beverage, rich with pure coffee aroma. Keep a bottle of Bushell's coffee essence in your kitchen for those times when you want a refreshing cup of coffee but haven't much time to spare. Be sure it's Bushell's coffee essence. Always a wise buy, a bottle of Bushell's coffee essence. Besides serving it hot or cold as a deliciously flavorsome beverage, use Bushell's coffee essence for icing, cakes, and fillings. Use it, too, in the making of sweets and marzipan, ice cream, milkshakes. There's no doubt about it, this served-in-a-minute coffee essence is a boon in any home. Always keep a bottle on your kitchen shelf. Put it on your grocery order now. Bushell's coffee essence for delicious, full-flavored coffee, made almost as soon as you think about it, and so wonderfully refreshing. Bushell's, with over 50 years' experience in tea and coffee blending, take a particular pride in their wonderful coffee essence. Coffee made from Bushell's coffee essence is so easily and quickly prepared. All you have to do is add milk or water, hot or cold, to a small quantity of Bushell's coffee essence, and you have a cup of rich, delicious coffee, full of flavor, delightfully refreshing. Buy a bottle of Bushell's coffee essence tomorrow. Keep it handy for those when every minute counts occasions. Ask your grocer for Bushell's coffee essence for rich, fresh coffee, ready in a jiffy. Behind every product of Bushell's is the research and experience of over half a century. This vast experience and accumulated knowledge has gone into the wonderfully successful production by Bushell's of their delicious coffee essence, an essence with a true, rich coffee flavor. Bushell's coffee essence makes coffee that is easily, quickly prepared, a blessing on occasions when time counts, an ideal choice for that warm drink at bedtime. Yes, there's tradition and the knowledge of experts behind Bushell's coffee essence. Try it yourself. Notice its rich, enticing aroma, its full, satisfying flavor. Ask for Bushell's coffee essence.
It's a first favorite with men who know their whiskers.
Do you?
Of course I do. Wise men like me use Ingram shaving cream to wilt whiskers.
Does Ingram's always make you smooth?
Certainly. My wife says my face is smoother today than the first time I kissed her before we were married.
Well, she should know. Does your wife want to say something?
I certainly do. Bill here used to scrape away with his razor every morning, and he never had a smooth face, until I bought him a jar of Ingram shaving cream. From then on, Bill's skin improved, and I'm proud of him. But if he stops using Ingram, I stop being friends.
Never fear. A man couldn't stop using Ingram. With its luxurious lather that foams around whiskers, standing them up, ready for a swift and sudden mowing down with a razor. The outstanding thing about Ingrams is it cools and soothes the face, besides giving the smoothest shave a man could wish for.
Yes, Ingram shaving cream is wonderful.
Try it, sir. A quality product of Bristol Myers Company Proprietary Limited, 127 Manor Street, Wellington. Hello, listeners. I want you to meet me. I'm a champion shaver.
You're a champion shaver? What next?
Next thing to do, if you want to be a champion too, is to get Ingram shaving cream.
But what would my wife say?
Same as mine did. Here she is now.
We wives agree that husbands should use Ingram shaving cream. It gets rid of sandpaper face. If there's one thing a wife objects to, it's a stubbly beard on her man's chin. You men would be wise to think of your wives and use Ingrams for smoothness.
Yes, smooth types use soothing, smoothing Ingrams. You smear a little on your face, then rub up a snowy foam of cool lather. Then a flick of your razor under the hot tap and a few deft strokes and the job's done. Wives say...
I could stroke my husband's cheek for hours now he uses Ingrams.
Definitely, sir. You should use Ingrams. A quality product of Bristol Myers Company Proprietary Limited, 127 Manor Street, Wellington. What a lather.
And a little goes a long way.
What a luxurious shave.
With Ingram shaving cream.
Listeners, I want to introduce my wife. Her name's Betty. She came along to tell you what a change has come over me since I started shaving with Ingrams. Betty, please carry on.
Well, you know what husbands are, and this one wouldn't change his shaving cream for love or money. So I bought a jar of Ingram and watched Bill shave. It was quite a sight. But when it was over, he was all smiles and his face was softer than the first time he kissed me. So if he stops using Ingrams, I stop being friends.
Never fear. A man couldn't stop using Ingrams with its luxurious lather that foams around whiskers, standing them up, ready for a swift and sudden mowing down with a razor. The outstanding thing about Ingrams is it cools and soothes the face, besides giving the smoothest shave a man could wish for.
Yes, there's no doubt about Ingram shaving cream. It's wonderful. A luxury product of Bristol Myers Company Proprietary Limited, 127 Manor Street, Wellington. Where's my Ingram?
Get me another jar of Ingrams, please, dear.
Why, for goodness sake, didn't you buy me Ingram? Yes, everywhere the call is for Ingram shaving cream. A first choice of shrewd shavers. It's a concentrated cream. A little goes a long way. Makes a luxurious lather that wilts whiskers and gives a cool, comforting shave. That's why every man likes it. Mr. Smith, why do you like Ingrams?
Well, I think my whiskers are more wiry and tough than the average fellow's. So I chose the shaving cream especially made for a tough assignment, Ingrams. My wife tells me I have a pretty smooth skin these days, too.
Yes, use Ingrams for a smooth, cool shave. You rub up a snowy foam of cool lather. It soothes your face, makes your skin as smooth as a film star's.
No difference between you and one of those film star heroes, so far as a smooth shave goes, when you use Ingram. Try it.
A luxury product of Bristol Myers Company Proprietary Limited, 127 Manor Street, Wellington.
The Coral Route, Skyway to Oceania, presented by Brian O'Brien. This program is a 6-part travel feature following the Tasman Empire Airways Limited, Teal, Coral Route across the Pacific. Program 1, Suva to Samoa. Brian introduces the program, which begins in Suva, Fiji. He visits the local grammar school and interviews several boys about hunting. The next day he boards the TEAL Solent flying boat on the Coral Route to Tahiti, with the first stop Samoa.
The Coral Route, Skyway to Oceania. I arrived at Suva with a little time to spare before I should board the flying boat on the Teal Coral Route to Tahiti. Suva, with its technicolor sea, its vivid blue sky and emerald foliage, was smiling under a brilliant sun. I did a quick tour of some of my old haunts. At the grammar school, I was greeted by several of the children who remembered me from my last visit. I discussed the Fijian scene with some of them. Come on, what's your name?
Richard Jacob.
What are you going to tell us, Richard?
That monkeys, they're pests because...
In Fiji, my word, they are a pest. Go ahead.
And they eat chickens and take the eggs. When you want eggs to cook something, they run up into the fowl house and take anything out. All the eggs and small chickens. And
do you trap them at all, kill them?
Yes, you've got a sort of a box. Wire netting on top, and when they go in, they pull a wire, and the door comes down on top of them.
Do you eat?
In the box.
Yeah. Do you eat mongooses?
No.
You don't?
No.
All right, I'm sure you eat something that you trap here anyway. What's your name?
Alan Snowshaw.
What are you going to tell us, Alan?
Well, mostly that was how Becker has its call.
The which? The Becker. What's the Becker?
Well, bat.
Oh, the big flying fox.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Around home, when we go out shooting them, usually have Shanghais or catapults with ball bearings.
Are they pests too?
Well, actually eat your mangoes if you want them. And
eat the fruits too?
Well, I suppose so. If there are none around and you want them to come around, the call is something like this.
And that brings them around?
Yes.
And then people destroy them?
Yes.
How wide are they on the wingspread?
About 2 or 3 feet.
3 feet? That's pretty good. Right, thank you. Oh. Hello, what's your name?
My name's Ian Thompson.
What are you going to tell us, Ian?
I'm going to tell you about what the flying fox tastes like.
What the flying fox tastes like? I knew we'd get something that we could eat soon. What does it taste like?
Tastes like something like fowl and got a strong smell. We usually roast them over the fire.
You like them?
No.
You have eaten them?
Yes.
When you've been a bad boy?
No.
Right, we won't give you any flying fox for tea. You didn't have flying fox for tea tonight, did you?
No.
Hello, what's your name?
Carl Bay.
And what are you going to tell us, Carl?
I'm tell us about how you catch a wild bush pigeon.
Go ahead.
Well, if you want to catch them by a cage without wounding them, you get a box and you paint it about the color of the undergrowth, and you put a string over a nail, and you go and hide behind a bush. And when the wood pigeon eats a kind of a fruit off a tree, it gets very thirsty and has to go and find water. And we put some water inside the box, and it goes inside the box, mistaking it for a little water hole underneath the undergrowth. And when it goes in there, we see it go in, and we pull the string off the nail, and the door closes and the pigeon's caught, and then we come out and take it.
And then you, how many make a meal?
About 5.
And are they very nice?
Yes.
That evening, I returned to my hotel, the Grand Pacific, which is magnificently sited on the edge of the lagoon. The great lounge was full of guests waiting to go in to dinner. Suddenly, there was a scatter among the crowd. People were moving off in all directions, and one or two of the women were squealing as though in fear. The cause of it? A small 7-year-old boy named John Dicker, whose father was employed in the Suva branch of the Australia and New Zealand Bank. John looked around nonplussed. He didn't seem to have a friend in the place, and the broad smile on his face gave way to a look of dismay. Suddenly he spotted me sitting on a couch on the other side of the lounge. I was smiling broadly. He had a friend at last. With a wide grin he made straight for me. Every eye in the place was on us. The reason? John was carrying, coiled around his shoulders, a large, banded, black and white sea snake, a brilliant and fearsome-looking reptile. John supported the snake's wriggling head in his right hand, while his left hand held the tail portion. The fiery red forked tongue was flashing in and out. The creature, when subsequently measured by us, was 4 feet 6 inches in length. John, although an Australian boy, showed not the slightest fear of it. Nor did I, for although sea snakes, taken generally, are far more deadly than land snakes, this variety was harmless, and I recognized it at once. John sat himself down beside me. One of the Fijian porters approached us. His eyes were wide with apprehension. "Let it go, please, sir. You will have bad luck." Unseen by John, I nodded my head to reassure him. The Fijians believe that snakes of this particular species, which of course they know to be harmless, are old Fijian chieftains reincarnated, and therefore they would never dream of harming, let alone even touching one of them. I had my tape recorder with me and proceeded to plug the microphone into place. John seemed completely unaware of the fascinated stares from all directions as he caressed the coiling serpent. "You hold him," he said, bestowing a great favor on me. I picked up the snake, which was cold and clammy to the touch. Well, I wasn't afraid of the creature, but I remember thinking then, however could any adult person ever get to the stage of feeling affection for snakes and keeping them as pets? Publicity seekers, maybe. But perhaps that's not fair. Perhaps there is a responsive chord somewhere. I handed the snake back to John and held up the microphone. I'm not altogether sure that John realized just what was taking place.
"Look what I've got."
Oh, good gracious me, John, it's a sea snake. It must be 4'6" long. Good heavens above. Where did you get it?
Down the back of the hotel.
And have you been playing with it?
Yes.
And weren't you afraid?
No.
Why, look at its funny shape there. Look at the tail, John. Why is its tail flat like that?
Because it helps it to swim.
Oh, because it's a sea snake. Now, have you got a name for it yet?
No.
Why?
Because I don't know if it's a she or a he.
Oh, I see. Well, I can't help you there, John, but I think we'd better give it a name anyway and risk it. What do you think?
I'll call it Henry.
All right. John, we'll call it Henry, and if it turns out to be Henrietta, that'll be all right. You'll call it Henrietta, won't you?
Yes.
Now, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to make it a pet?
Yes.
You're going to play with it every day?
Yes.
And what are you going to keep it in?
A jar.
And where are you going to put it when you're home? Where are you going to put the jar with the snake? Outside?
Yes.
But what if it gets cold at night time, John? What are you going to do then?
Take it to bed with me.
I don't know. Do you think Mum would be pleased about that?
I don't know.
I don't think she'd mind somehow. What are you going to feed it on?
Little fish and crabs.
And where are you going to get those? Out? You fish them yourself?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And what were you doing with it when were you playing with it outside on the lawn?
Yes.
I could see the top of your head just over the balustrade there, but I couldn't see what you were doing. And what were you doing when you were playing with it?
Tickling it.
Did it laugh?
No.
I noticed, John, when you brought it, when you're carrying it along there just now, the people are running away everywhere. They're afraid of it. Are you not afraid of it at all?
No.
It's heavy to lift, isn't it?
Yes.
And do you think you're going to be able to keep it? What are you going to do? It's got to... will you be able to get seawater for it? What are you going to do about that?
I'll get some seawater.
And how often are you going to do that?
Once a day.
And you think that if you give it seawater once a day and you feed it little bits of fish and that, it'll grow up even to a bigger snake?
Yes.
And you're going to have a lot of fun with it, John, aren't you?
Yes.
Right, have we got anything else to say?
No.
Right, thanks, John, that's fine. There remains just to tell what finally happened to the snake. I had scarcely finished interviewing John when Mrs. Dicker came into the lounge. John, full of enthusiasm, at once started to tell his mother about his plans for his new pet. Mrs. Dicker and I, between us, at last managed to dissuade him. We told John that the sea snake would be very lonely and sad if he was no longer able to see his brothers and sisters. That seemed to register with John. And before long, although crestfallen, he willingly made the great sacrifice. We took the snake out onto the lawn and watched it instinctively make for the water. It wriggled its way to the stony breastwork and plunged some 4 feet into the sea. For a few seconds, its head only was raised above the surface as it swam along in the pose of the traditional sea serpent, and then dived underneath and disappeared. The next morning, I arose early and drove to the busy airport to begin my journey.
Hurry up, Brian, or we'll be going without you.
Oh, sorry, I'm coming right away. Well, cheerio, chap. See you all on my way back. Cheerio. I take my seat in the large Solent flying boat of Teal Airways.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Teal Coral route. Captain Shepherd has asked me to make the following announcements. We are about to depart for Samoa, and in a few minutes the engines will be started and we will taxi out to the takeoff area. During the flight, we will be serving lunch. Near each passenger chair on the aircraft is a service push button, which please use whenever you want during the flight to summon a member of the cabin staff. After takeoff, Captain Shepherd will give you further information about our flight. Thank you.
The engines have spun, and soon we are taxiing out into the lovely lagoon at La Fala Bay Suva, the starting point of the coral route to Tahiti. Nukalau Island, palm-shaded and tranquil, lies a short distance away, while beyond the reef, friendly little islands, veiled in distance, float on the horizon as unsubstantial as the cloud banks above them. Soon we are swinging along the coastline, turning northeast on the first hop of 702 miles to Apia. Below us are the jagged volcanic mountains of Viti Levu, falling away steeply into the vivid green coastal flats. From above, the countless coconut palms look like a kind of star-patterned carpet, fringed by the glorious coral colors of the lagoon: green, blue, red, yellow, brown, and purple. As the coast recedes, the eyes still linger on the coral-stained shores. Soon we are among the multitudinous islands of the Fiji group.
The island appearing on the port side is Ovala. The town is Levuka, which is the former capital of Fiji. It was originally the capital of a cannibal kingdom, and it was once said amongst mariners that leading lights were unnecessary in Levuka's harbour because it was so easy for ships' captains to navigate their way in by the line of gin bottles floating out to sea. Today, though, Levuka is a peaceful and attractive place.
Pretty mountainous, isn't it?
It is.
What's the size of Ovala?
8 miles by 7.
Not of much importance now.
Oh, yes, as a trade centre for the Unit route. Strategically, it's of considerable importance. Fiji, of course, is the outpost for the defence of Australia and New Zealand, just as Honolulu is for the western coast of the United States.
They have a pretty good naval and air base at Suva.
Oh, yes. The harbour there is deep enough to hold a fleet, and the town lies right across the shipping lanes and air routes.
Ovala guards the North Passage.
Yes, the northeast to be exact, Candabo Island guards the south.
Do we worry at all about this area?
Oh, yes, indeed. It's constantly patrolled by the RMZAF and the Navy. The larger islands are gradually left behind us. From now on, the flight takes on a dreamlike quality. Tiny coral islands glisten below us like sectioned agates against a background of deepest blue. We are now at full operational height, and consequently all outlines are sharpened, all colors accentuated, until their hues are almost unbelievable. I think of Cook and Bougainville and Wallace and Bligh of the Bounty, all of whom passed this way. We of the 20th century, sitting in comfort, see such beauties as these men never even imagined. Truly is this skyway named the Coral Route.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Shepherd. We are now cruising at 8,000 feet. The weather ahead and in Samoa is good. We estimate to arrive over Samoa at 2:30 p.m. on Thursday, Samoa time. Samoa time is now 11 a.m. But because we cross the international date line, we leave Suva on Friday and arrive in Samoa on Thursday. Thank you.
I wonder what Samoa will be like. Have you been there?
Yes, I have. I can tell you that the 20-mile drive along the seacoast from the Teal Airport to Apia, where we stay the night, is one of the most beautiful drives of its type in the world.
You'll get a real cross-section of village life along that road. Everything is open to view. The homes have thatched roofs but no walls. If you're there late enough, you'll see them going to bed.
If you're there early enough, you'll see them getting up.
Are there many flowers?
A great many. Every home has a garden of some sort. The villages are very tidy and quite pretty.
What about bird life?
I'm afraid that will disappoint you. Birds are very scarce. You won't see any on the way to Apia.
Unless a few plover on the estuary. They come around at this time of the year.
Yes, you'll possibly see some plover, but nothing else. No sparrows, no gulls. As a matter of fact, you usually have to go deep in the woodlands before you even see a bird at all.
How many species have you got?
Well, the book says 34. 16 are found nowhere else in the world. They have one remarkable bird, a link with the prehistoric past. It's called Mana Mea. It has teeth all along its bill.
Are there any animals?
Well, flying foxes, big fellows, rats, lizards, and a few harmless snakes.
Oh, well, Daisy said harmless. The many tourists go to Samoa?
Well, it has a great tourist potential, but that side of it hasn't been developed much yet.
Well, the opportunity is there, I should say. The plane's been hit within 2 days of New Zealand.
That's so. It certainly has great possibilities, no doubt about that, but actually the service was established for quick communications with our island territories. But the tourist side of it, of course, would be pretty valuable too.
Approaching on the port side is Niuafu, which is part of the Kingdom of Tonga and is also known as Tin Can Island. Owing to the difficulties of the anchorage, mail-bearing ships used to lie off the island and the mail was put overboard, buoyed up by sealed kerosene tins. The mail was collected well out to sea by a swimmer, himself buoyed up in 2 bamboo poles held under his arms. The swimmer, a Mr. Ramsey, swam out 118 times for the mail. A few years ago, this island was the scene of a sudden volcanic eruption, and Queen Salote, the reigning monarch of Tonga, ordered the islanders to leave their habitat for their own safety. Now, the only inhabitants are coppercratters.
There it is. It's in the Tongan group, isn't it?
Yes, on the outskirts. The main island, Tonga Tabu, is 400 miles away.
There must have been a terrific blowout on Tin Can.
Oh, there was. Wiped out practically the whole of the government headquarters and the villagers' homes and property.
How did they get the people off?
On the Matua. She took the whole 1,300. That was only in 1946. I believe there's only a handful of natives there now, less than 20, copper gatherers.
Oh, by the way, why didn't they use a canoe to collect the mail?
The Pacific swell is too much for a canoe.
Quite a small island, isn't it?
Yes, about 3 miles by 3.5, I think. You know, it's rather strange that such a small place should have a unique bird. It's called a megapode. It lays a very large egg, which it just leaves in the sand for the sun to hatch.
Evidently Tonga, like the Samoan group, must have been isolated from a very remote period.
It would seem so.
now approaching the Satupuala Airport, which is our lighting area in Western Samoa. At this airport, we disembark from the aircraft by launch, and light refreshments will be served in the terminal building. When we are free to leave the airport, you will be directed to the transport, which will take you to Apia, a drive of some 20 miles.
We arrive at the airport of Satupuala, which lies inside the coral reef. The sun is shining brilliantly, yet grey columns in the distant sky above Apia tell of a heavy downpour there. However, by the time we reach the town, the sun is shining brightly in a cloudless sky. Apia, with its row of umbrella-like trees flanking the waterfront, is prettily situated along the shores of a bay. At the back of the town are high, irregularly shaped volcanic hills covered with dense bush. That evening there is plenty to interest us. A fish drive takes place in the bay. The watcher from a high tower on the beach spots the shoal. Soon after his signal to the fishermen, the beach is crowded with excited onlookers. The shoal is encircled and driven into the nets.
There's great excitement. Yes, the girls are afraid that you're going to get your machine swamped. We'll risk that. The tide is rising. Yes, now. well... they're also afraid you're going to get your feet wet. Yes, well now, the big fish they catch further out, don't they? The big fish they get usually in deep water on the reef. Yes, well now An entirely different type of fishing they indulge in. I think we'll have to shift the gear because the tide's going to take right over. In about 10 seconds it'll be right on you. Thank you very much. It's most interesting.
I wandered along the waterfront to watch the building of a fishing boat. I was immediately approached by a number of children who requested that I take their photo. I interviewed one of them, Leiti Stefano, an intelligent-looking lad of about 12. He was simply dressed, just in a lava and stood as straight as a sapling. You will notice his very careful phrasing and his precise pronunciation. Hello.
Hello, sir.
What's your name?
My name is Leiti Stefano.
And how old are you? Leiti, is that right?
Yes.
How old are you?
I am 12 years old.
Have you been swimming?
Yes. No.
Yes, no, make up your mind. No.
No.
What have you been doing?
I am just watching the men pulling the boat.
Pulling the boat in?
Yes.
That water looks lovely there, Leiti. Do you like swimming?
Yes. I like swimming very much.
You like fishing?
No. Because I don't know how to fish.
That's an answer I didn't expect from an island boy. Now, what do you like best of all?
I like to stay home to help my mother.
And what do you do when you stop home helping mother? Leiti?
I went fetching water to cook our food, gathering the firewood, cutting the grass.
Cutting the grass? Well, that sounds like quite a job. What games do you play?
I play football.
Any other?
And softball, baseball.
And what do you like best?
And I like football best.
Have you heard of our rugby players in New Zealand?
Yes, I heard about it.
And what did you hear?
I heard that it was the champion of the world.
That's splendid. You gave me the right answer that time, Leiti. Now, let me see. What do you call that skirt you're wearing?
We call it in Samoan, lava.
In Fiji, they call it Sulu. It's something like that, but I don't think it wraps over. Does Sulu mean anything in Samoan? The word?
Yes. Two nouns. A small book like weekly news and...
That's the noun, a noun. And it means a small book like the weekly news.
Yes. And another noun is called fire. And a verb is to tuck in and...
To tuck in like when you're tying your
yes.
lava.
Yes.
Oh, it's a noun and a verb.
Mm.
It's Fijian word, and it means quite a lot in Samoan. Are you going to visit New Zealand someday, Le'iti?
I don't know, but I want to go to New Zealand.
Have you got anybody in New Zealand belonging to you?
Yes, my sister.
Oh, where's she?
At Nelson.
And what's she doing in New Zealand?
She went there to the university.
Is she a scholarship winner?
Yes. She was a scholarship.
That's very good. Well, I think now, just before we close, Le'iti, you should send a message to your sister. Would you like to do that?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Mo po avai se te whanu. Wo o tau talatu le nei afiafi. Na o sa walofa tu mo o tua whinepele. Ia e lofa au maini tusi i vaso le o lo ilum. Lo walofa po avai se te whanu. Ia wo uma na upu na tofa le ite se te whanu.
Thank you very much, Le'iti, and I hope we'll soon see you in New Zealand.
Fair winds to the South Seas discovery of New Zealand. On the 13th of December 1642, sailors aboard two small ships belonging to the Dutch East India Company sighted land. This was the first reported sighting by Europeans of Aotearoa, New Zealand. The man commanding the expedition was Abel Jansoon Tasman. Narrator, John O'Leary. Cast, Paul Robinson, Abel Tasman, Ken Blackburn, Anthony Van Dieman, John Callan, Pilot Major Francois Vischer. Abel Jansoon Tasman was a Dutch seafarer, explorer, and merchant best known for his voyages of 1642 and 1644 in the service of the Dutch East India Company. He was the first known European explorer to reach New Zealand and the islands of Fiji and Van Diemen's Land.
Hi, I'm Lynn Freeman, and this is the Drama Hour here on the 13th of December 1642. Seamen aboard one of the Dutch East India Company vessels involved in an expedition in search of the fabled Great Southern Continent sighted a large land uplifted high. This was the first recorded sighting by Europeans of New Zealand, and the commander of the expedition none other than the Dutch seafarer, explorer and merchant Abel Jansoon Tasman. Our play today, Fair Winds to the South Seas by Brian Millard, is a dramatised documentary on the life and career of Tasman.
Fair Winds to the South Seas, the story of Abel Tasman and the European discovery of New Zealand. Tierkettle Lane in Amsterdam in the early 17th century was not a good address. It was a small alley that took its name from the vats used to boil tar. This modest place was the home of Abel Tasman when he took a wife for the second time. Tasman was born in 1603 in Lutgast, a small village west of Groningen in a district known as Friesland. And when his first wife, Klaaskie Hendricks, by whom he had a daughter, died, he was a humble seaman without qualification. In the Church Registrar of Marriages in Amsterdam, there's a record dated the 27th of December 1631, which details the appearance of Abel Jansoon, aged 28, described as a widower, and Jannetie Tjars of Amsterdam, aged 21 years, attended by her sister, Geerte. Tasman signed his name. His bride could not, and put crosses in token of her signature. The marriage was celebrated on Sunday, the 11th of January, 1632, in the Old Church, Amsterdam. Jannety could not have been pleased when Tasman announced his departure for the East Indies within 18 months of the nuptials.
My husband has achieved prominence in his employment and has pleased his masters well. He is now appointed first mate aboard the vessel Vesp. This is a great honour, for which we should no doubt be pleased. But my heart is heavy. My dear husband is to sail for Batavia in Java, and thence to Ambon in the eastern sector of the East Indies. Sadly, I cannot accompany him, and must remain here until his return, which, God willing, will be soon.
Abel Tasman rose to the rank of Commodore. The fact that this lowly-born, virtually uneducated man could rise from obscurity to become the greatest of Dutch navigators was due not only to his own undoubted ability, but also to his association with the Dutch East India Company. In fact, another key player in the European discovery of New Zealand, Antony van Diemen, was a bankrupt merchant who departed for Asia under an assumed name, yet rose to the exalted rank of Governor-General. In any other European country at that time, both careers would have been the preserves of the aristocracy. Tasman obtained his first command within a few months of arriving in the East Indies. He was appointed skipper of the vessel Mocha, and with 4 other ships and a pinnace, set off on a voyage to determine a new route around Ceram.
My husband's enemies have made grievous allegations against him in connection with the selling of ships' victuals. This monstrous fabrication is causing us all great concern.
On July the 18th, 1636, the crew of the Mocha laid complaints against Tasman, accusing him of malpractice in selling provisions to the natives that should have rightly been distributed to the crew. They alleged he'd kept from them their rations of arrack, a type of crude liquor, oil and vinegar for 2 months. This matter did not, however, reach the stage of prosecution, and judgment against Tasman was suspended. On December the 30th, 1636, Tasman set sail for the Netherlands aboard the Banda as a senior officer, arriving home on August the 1st, 1637. By March of the following year, Tasman was trying to sell his home in Amsterdam, and less than a month later, on the 15th of April, 1638, he set sail again for Batavia as skipper of the Engel. This time, his wife Jannety accompanied him. They were never to see the Netherlands again. For the next 5 years, Tasman was to serve the Dutch East India Company well. He patrolled his former haunts around Ambon and completed various expeditions in unknown waters. He explored east of Japan in an unsuccessful search for islands reputed to be rich in gold and silver. The elusive Rica de Oro and Rica de Plata, believed to lie in latitudes 29 degrees to 31 degrees north. This expedition, under the command of Matthijs Hendriksson Kvast, comprised 2 ships. Kvast's flagship was the Engel. Tasman was skipper of the Gracht. Sickness took a heavy toll of the voyagers, and by the time the vessels had anchored off the Dutch fortress of Zeelandia on Formosa, 21 of the crew of the Engel and 20 of Tasman's crew were dead. Between 1640 and 1642, Tasman explored the coasts of Korea, North China and Cambodia aboard the flagship Oostkapelle. These voyages also were not without incident. On the 27th of June, 1640, Tasman left for Japan via Formosa. En route, he captured a Cambodian junk carrying Portuguese goods. Unfortunately, in the ensuing battle, he allowed another vessel to escape. For his negligence, the Dutch authorities in Formosa fined him 2 months' pay. Shortly after this incident, the Oostkapelle lost her mast and rudder in a storm and had to be taken in tow to Formosa.
January the 17th, 1642. Today we have good reason for celebration. The Honourable Governor-General and his good councillors have passed a resolution beneficial to my husband. Having served for 3 years as skipper at 60 guilders a month, he is now to receive 80 guilders a month for a further 3 years, as from October the 11th. This is in continuance of his contract for 10 years' service. This is good news indeed.
By 1642, Tasman had proved himself to be a highly experienced and resourceful skipper in the tough and dangerous work set him by the Dutch East India Company. The hazards, hardships and tedium, however, did not deter his ambition, as the events after 1642 were to show. A greater destiny was being shaped for Abel Janszoon Tasman. In 1642, maps of the period showed Australia and New Guinea forming a single landmass, and the decision to carry out further exploration to determine what lay to the south of Australia was debated by the Supreme Government in Batavia. Governor-General Van Diemen was particularly enthusiastic for expansion of Dutch interests in the area. On August the 1st, plans came to a head following a resolution taken by Batavian authorities. Governor-General Anthony van Diemen.
As our predecessors, the Lords General Jan Pietersen Keun, deceased, Peter de Carpentier, Hendrik Brouwer, and we, during their honours and our governing, have been inclined to sail to, accordingly to discover, the partly known and still unreached south and eastern land. It is for reasons unanimously resolved and decided to use, for the discovery of the apparent rich southern and eastern lands, the ship Heemskerk and the sloop Zeehan. The first manned with 60 and the other with 50 of the ablest seafaring people here in the roadstead, provided with everything, except rice, for 12 or 18 months. Furthermore, duly provided with all useful necessaries, as well as diverse trade goods, and minerals for trial in the visited lands. Under the command of the Honourable Abel Janszoon Tasman, who, anno 1639, was with Commander Matthias Quast, deceased, to east of Japan, and is very keen on this discovering. Likewise, Pilot Major Francois Visser.
Van Diemen's resolution was based on a proposal put forward by Francois Fischer, who was a well-respected navigational expert and cartographer. Fischer was employed in the ranks of the Dutch East India Company as a pilot major. In January 1642, the Supreme Government of Batavia received 2 memoranda from him. One concerned further exploration in the Southland, the other about surveying the area east of Japan. Fisher's plan suggested he no longer believed in the existence of a vast southern continent, but thought a passage might exist to the east, which would lead to the Solomons.
My name is Francois Jacobsoen Fischer, Pilot Major. I am the true architect and originator of the expedition of 1642 and 1643, which culminated in the discovery of Van Diemen's Land, Staten Land, and the islands of Tonga and Fiji. The expedition was commanded by Abel Janszoon Tasman, a man of questionable breeding and less than noble character, whose deeds and misdemeanours should rightly be brought to account. I alone proposed to Governor-General Van Diemen that a route might be found to Chile along the edge of the Southland. I duly set out the timetable for a journey from Mauritius to the south as far as latitude 52 and 54 degrees south. No one before had reached this distance in the Eastern Hemisphere, given, it is true, it had been traversed in the Western Hemisphere around the bleak Cape Horn, which lies on the same parallel. My plan on reaching this point was to sail east until meeting the meridian on which the Solomons lay, then to turn north and subsequently return home to Batavia via New Guinea and the Moluccas. Furthermore, my plan was to sail in August and thereby arrive in the southerly latitudes by November, thus enjoying the longest hours of daylight. And by sailing both by day and by night, it would be possible to take full advantage of the prevailing westerly winds, of which there would be a generous abundance. By proceeding at this time, then one would have 3 to 3.5 months to get this discovering done complete in everything.
In effect, Fisher's memorandum was a muddled document which outlined several options. But it was approved in consideration of his good knowledge of navigation. Fisher was appointed to continue in his rank of upper mate for a further 3 years at a salary increased from 66 to 80 guilders a month. He was to sail with Tasman on the flagship Heemskerk as pilot-major of the expedition and as upper mate of the ship. A member of the council, headed by Governor-General van Diemen, was charged with the drawing up of detailed instructions. This man was Eustace Scholten.
Instructions for the skipper, Commander Abel Janssen Tasman, the chief mate, Jacobsen Fischer, and the council of the ship Heemskerk and the flute Zeehan, assigned to the discovery of the unknown and found Southland, the southeast coast of Nova Guinea, together with the islands located thereabout. All lands, islands, points, bights, inlets, bays, rivers, shoals, banks, sands, rocks, and reefs which you will meet with and pass, you must chart thoroughly. Also the form and appearance, duly drawn, to which end a draftsman has been provided for you. Also carefully noting in what altitude or latitude, what kind of livestock be there, what sort of structure of houses, the form and appearance of the inhabitants, their clothing, weapons, customs, manners, food, livelihood, religion, government, war, and other notable things, all of which you shall keenly observe, properly draw civilized people, as is not likely. You shall take more account of them than of the wild savages. Try to get in conversation and in acquaintance with the leaders and subjects, informing them that you come there to trade, showing them samples of the wares given for this purpose, particularly finding out what wares are among them. Likewise about gold and silver, and if it is in valued regard by them, representing yourself not to be eager for it, in order to keep them unaware of the value of the same. And if they should give you gold or silver in any bartering, you must conduct yourself as if you did not value this specie, showing copper, spelter, and lead, as if the ordinary ration of 2 meat and 1 bacon a day a week, and 1.5 mutchkins of arrack a day be regularly distributed and all properly controlled. 2 casks of strong arrack goes in each ship to be distributed sparingly in the cold for the people's health. But particularly use the fresh water very controlled, so that you fall into no necessitous want. We shall wish you the blessings of the All-Ruler, asking him to favor you with manly courage for fulfilling the intended discovering, and let you return safely to the extension of his glory, repute of the fatherland, company service, and undying honor of you all. In the castle of Batavia, the 13th of August, Anno Domini, 1642.
On the 14th of August, the ships left Batavia, and in accordance with sailing orders, the position was calculated daily for future reference. Commodore's log.
This is the journal or description by me, Abel Janssen Tasman, of a voyage made from the town of Batavia in East India, relating to the discovery of the unknown Southland in the year Anno 1642, the 14th August. May it please God Almighty to give hereto his blessing. The wind northeast with good weather. This day, in the evening, the Zeehan sailed aground on the island of Rotterdam. At night, without notable damage, got it off again, and have addressed ourselves to the continuation of the voyage to the Strait of Sunda.
By the following day, the ships had reached the west coast of Java.
15th of August. Anchored before Anya in 22 fathoms, where we have repaired our ship. The same lay so unfit that it was impossible to go to sea with her.
Pilot Major Fisher took very accurate observations for latitude, but unknowingly he used an instrument that was inaccurate by 8 minutes. As a result, his calculations contained a number of serious mathematical errors.
18th of August. Estimated latitude 6 degrees 48 minutes, longitude 123 degrees 20 minutes. The wind southeast with good weather. Course kept southwest by west, as we have resolved on the 17th with the Council, and sailed 13 miles at night. Hard rain with thunder and lightning.
The ships continued towards Mauritius, an island then occupied by the Dutch, where it was intended stores would be taken on board and whatever repairs were necessary could be made. The Zeehan and the Heemskerk spent some time at anchor in the Mauritius harbour. Tasman later complained that reprovisioning his ship had been made difficult due to the unhelpful attitude of the Dutch governor. The governor in turn complained that Tasman had spent an inordinate amount of time carousing, wining and dining, and would have been better employed supervising the efforts of his crew.
7th of September. Almost the whole day occupied with blocks and stays because the rigging is old, weak, and not much to be trusted. We have on the main and foremast rigging put on 3 more shrouds for security. Towards the evening have received 8 head of he-goats and a pig from the land. On the 9th day, sent one of our carpenters with 7 sailors, both from us and the Zeehan, to the wood to cut timber. Afternoon, wrote an order to the officers of the Zeehan, whereby we charged them to not more than a half quartern of arrack a day to their ship's company as ration, and that only to those who are cold, wet, and dirty. On the 19th day, the carpenters have gone over the ship from outside, stopped the leaks which they could find, further attended to everything, and pitched properly the seams.
By the 4th of October, Tasman was ready to leave Mauritius, but was unable to sail due to adverse weather conditions.
7th of October. This bay is very hard to come out of because the south wind here blows continuously. Who has nothing necessary to do here ought not to come here.
On the 8th of October, the ships managed to raise their anchors and were able to sail south. 3 weeks later, they'd reached almost 46 degrees south. Visibility was poor, and Tasman decided it would be prudent not to sail any further south in unknown waters. He and the 2 ships' councils considered it would be safer to veer east until the weather cleared. The next few days were stormy, and the ships battled gale-force westerlies. They reached 49 degrees by the 6th of November. On the 7th, Pilot Major Fisher made the following recommendations.
Notes taken both from the terrestrial globe and from the large chart of the South Seas on the 7th of November, anno 1642, delivered to the Honourable Commander Abel Jansoen Tasman with our advice. First, so the terrestrial globe shows us the easternmost of the Salomonis to lie in the longitude 220 degrees, taking this longitude to begin from the meridian in which the islands Corvo and Flores are located.
Fisher formally recommended following the 44th parallel for the voyage east rather than the 52nd parallel as set down in the instructions from Batavia.
So it is our advice that one ought to stay in the 44 degrees southern latitude until one has passed as far as 150 degrees of the longitude, departing then to 40 degrees latitude and staying there on an east course as far as longitude 220 degrees.
Fisher based his recommendations on unreliable Portuguese charts which showed the Solomon Islands much too far to the east of their true location. Had the expedition followed their original instructions, the ships would have sailed on to a point far south of Tasmania and New Zealand, and no discoveries would have been made. For the next week, the ships sailed north, turning east again when they reached the 44th parallel. On the 24th of November, they sighted mountains to the east.
On the 24th day, good weather and clear sky. At noon, observed 42 degrees 25 minutes and longitude 163 degrees 31 minutes. Course kept east by north and sailed 30 miles. Saw land. Had it east by north from us, by our estimate 10 miles. Was very high land. Towards the evening, saw in the east also 2 mountains. 25th day. Towards noon, got the wind southeast, and then south-southeast and south. Turned then to the coast. In the evening, about 5 o'clock, came close to the coast. 3 miles off the coast had 60 fathoms, coral bottom. 1 mile off the coast had clear white sand.
This was Tasman's first discovery, and he named it Van Diemen's Land. It was later changed to Tasmania.
This land is the first land in the South Seas to be met by us, and is still known to no European peoples. So we have given this land the name Antony van Diemen Land, in honor of the Honorable Governor-General, our High Superior, who has sent us out to do this discovery.
For several days, the Heemskerk and the Zeehan sailed along the coast of Tasmania in an easterly direction.
28th day. In the evening, came under the coast. Here under the coast are some small islands, one of which looks like a lion, that lies about 3 miles off the great land. On the 1st of December, in the morning, the weather somewhat better, set our topsails, the wind southwest with topsails breeze. Made our course for the coast. At noon had the white flag flown, whereupon the friends of the Zeehan came to the ship, when we resolved jointly, to be best and most advantageous, to get to land as soon as possible, if only wind and weather allow the same, both for closer knowledge of the same circumstances, and also to look to get some supplies. About 1 hour after sunset, have let the anchor in a good haven, in 22 fathoms, between white and grey fine sand, a natural shallowing bottom, wherefore we must show Almighty God grateful hearts.
Tasman's first anchorage off Tasmania was in the mouth of North Bay. On December the 1st, he decided to send a party ashore. He dispatched Pilot Major Fisher in a sloop with 4 musketeers and 6 rowers. They were armed to the teeth with pikes and sidearms. They were also accompanied by a small boat from the Zeehan carrying a further 7 men.
We rowed fully a mile around the point, until we found high yet level land. There we found edible green stuff unplanted, being forthcoming from God and nature, fruit-bearing timber in abundance, and a running water place. We heard some sound of people playing almost like a horn or small gong, but not far from us. But nevertheless, we did not manage to see them.
The reconnaissance party returned, further reporting that they'd found signs of human habitation and spores of various animals. During the next few days, they repeatedly observed smoke rising from the shore. Tasman named the inlet Frederick Hendrick Bay, after the then head of state of the United Provinces. It is now known as Blackman Bay. Commodore's log.
3rd day. With danger of the vessels being dashed to pieces, could not approach the land. We had the carpenter swim alone, with a stake and the Prince flag to land, and remained with the sloop lying in the wind. We had him erect the stake in the earth, about in the middle of the bay, by 4 high, prominent trees.
The council of the Heemskerk and officers of the Zeehan decided to abandon any further exploration of this newly discovered land. It was in any event impossible to follow the coastline of Tasmania further by attempting to sail into the wind. So a decision was reached to press on east to the level of the Solomon Islands. On the 5th of December, Tasman raised anchor and set sail again. 8 days of uneventful sailing followed. On the 9th day, the 13th of December 1642, as the ships advanced with a strong southwesterly wind, they sighted a large mountainous land looming up to the southeast. This was the first European sighting of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
The 13th of December. Towards noon, saw a large elevated land. Headed southeast from us about 15 miles. Made our course to southeast, direct for the land. Shot a shot, and this afternoon had the white flag flown, whereupon the officers of the Zeehan came to our ship. We jointly resolved to make said land as soon as at all possible.
For 4 days, the ship sailed towards the land following its coastline. On the 17th of December, they could see smoke rising from the shore. The ships dropped anchor temporarily, then spent the next day looking for a more sheltered anchorage.
We have resolved to try and get into this land and try to find a convenient harbour. With the setting of the sun, dropped our anchor in 15 fathoms. Good firm bottom. In the evening, about 1 hour after sunset, saw many lights on land and 4 vessels near the shore.
Fisher and the skipper of the Heemskerk were sent out in a sloop accompanied by another small boat from the Zeehan to seek a better anchorage and to determine the lie of the land. On their return journey, they were followed by 2 canoes from the shore.
Those from the 2 canoes began to call out to us in a gruff, hollow voice, but we could not in the least understand any of it.
A crew member on board the Heemskerk, one Hendrik Halbos, barber and ship surgeon, was an eyewitness to the events that followed.
Tasman could not see on account of darkness. He only heard the horrid noises of harsh voices and a shrill sound not unlike a trumpet. The sailors gestured in a friendly fashion to those on board the 2 canoes by displaying gifts and goods. The people on board the canoes called out and blew again a shrill sound on their trumpet. The undermate of the Zeehan was instructed to blow on a trumpet in answer. This was repeated several times in turn. But our efforts did not, however, bring about the end we wished.
In fact, the Maori interpreted the answering trumpet calls as an acceptance of their declaration of war. Tasman now found himself unwillingly embroiled in a skirmish.
Then the Southlanders began to rave terribly, blew on a horn and returned to land. Tasman called up the watch and placed on the deck sabres, pikes and guns. The next day the Southlanders rowed in several canoes, bound together, 2 and 2, and with planks laid over the sides.
The Dutch still did not realize that the Maori were in earnest. Tasman again tried to make contact, this time by using an old dictionary in the language of the Solomon Islanders dating from Lemaire's expedition. This proved perfectly useless. The master of the Zeehan, who was on board the Heemskerk at the time consulting with Tasman, sent his pinnace back to the Zeehan. But before it could reach the safety of the ship, the boat was attacked.
They who lay before us between the 2 ships began to paddle so vigorously to it that about a little more than halfway to our ship they struck the Zeehan's small boat with their stem on the side. The foremost in this canoe of rogues pushed the quartermaster Cornelis Joppen in the neck several times with a long blunt pike so fiercely that he had to fall overboard. The rest of them set to with short, thick pieces of wood and their paddles, overpowering the small boat. In this violence, 3 of the Zeehan people were killed, and the 4th, through the heavy blows, was mortally injured. The quartermaster and 2 more sailors swam towards our ship, and we sent our sloop for them, into which they got alive. After this monstrous deed and detestable thing, the murderers let the small boat drift. They pulled one of the dead into their canoe, and drowned another. We and those of the Zehan, seeing this, shot hard with muskets and cannon.
These people were rough, brave, strong, and of tawny colour. The head hair, tied up round, was bound together in a tress on top of the crown. The crown was adorned with a stiff white feather. Round the neck hung a square plate. Across the chest was a long white stripe. They wore a square cloak tied before the throat. In the middle of the canoes, bound together 2 by 2, was the chief who encouraged the rowers. Among the chiefs stood out a grey man who came close alongside and called out in a rough and deep voice. They all used staffs without points.
The Zehan's pinnace was able to be retrieved, and with this task accomplished, Tasman gave the order to raise anchor.
We could not expect to make here any friendship with these people, nor would water or supplies be obtained. Our anchors raised, and being under sail, we saw 22 canoes by the land, from which 11, swarming with people, came towards us. We kept quiet until we could shoot some of the foremost. We made 1 or 2 shots with our pieces from the gunner's room, but in vain. Those on the Zehan shot also, and hit the foremost canoe. We heard the shots strike in and against the canoe.
This second, heavier attack was easily repelled by the Dutch sailors, and the Maori returned to shore. This incident survived in Maori folk memory as a great victory. Over a century later, Maori regaled James Cook with tales of a great conquest and of the sinking of a number of ships many years previously. Because the Dutch thought they may have reached the western end of the mysterious Statenland or Southland discovered by Le Maire near Cape Horn, the newly discovered country was called Statenland. The 2 bays in which the ships had anchored were named Tasman's Bay and Murderer's Bay. Murderer's Bay is now known as Golden Bay. The ships now kept well away from the shore, fearing further hostilities from Maori. They tacked north in foul weather. On the 24th of December, with the weather still poor and battling a strong northwesterly wind, the ships found an opening to the east, where a strong current flowed. They had discovered what was much later named Cook Strait.
On the 24th day, still had unsettled weather, the wind still northwest with storm. In the morning, had a calm interval. Had the white flag flown and received the officers of the Zehan on our ship. Had proposed to them that since the flood comes from the southeast, so there might be a passage. Whether it would not be best, as soon as weather and wind will permit, to inquire into the same.
The proposal to explore the passage when the weather cleared was in fact never acted upon. No further reconnaissance was made. On Christmas Day, Tasman ordered pigs to be slaughtered and an extra ration of wine served to the crew. This was the first Christmas ever celebrated in New Zealand waters. No mention of the possibility of a passage to the east was made in Tasman's report, and in a map submitted by Tasman, there is no sign whatsoever of a channel. This would seem to be a deliberate falsification by Tasman. Fisher, on the other hand, produced a map which indeed showed the opening to Cook Strait.
It was apparent to me that there was certainly a passage. All the signs were there. Yet Commander Tasman, for reasons best known to himself, decided to ignore the facts. He chose instead to give the impression in his report that Statenland has one continuous coast, which by my judgment and observation was not the case.
The ships continued northwards, sheltering for a time in the lee of D'Urville Island.
On the 28th day in the morning, with the day made sail again, set our course to east, in order to investigate whatever that earlier land that we had seen at 40 degrees stretches still further to the north. Saw east by north a high mountain.
This was Mount Carrioy, north of Raglan Harbour. The ships continued along the west coast of the North Island, and by the 4th of January they were nearing the northernmost tip of New Zealand. Commodore's log.
On the 4th day, in the morning, we were beside a point, and had an island northwest from us.
The point was named Cape Maria van Diemen, after the wife of the Governor-General. The island was Great Island, the largest of a group of small islands which Tasman subsequently named Three Kings, or Epiphany, which is the 6th of January. The following day, Tasman dispatched Pilot Major Fisher in the ship's sloop to reconnoitre for fresh water. He returned with a favourable report. He and his party had also seen people on hilltops who had shouted at them threateningly and threw stones at them, which caused them to depart hurriedly. The next day, Fisher, in one of the 2 rowing boats, circled the island and managed to collect water, with some difficulty, due to strong currents and wind conditions. With water casks now safely on board, Tasman and the councils of the 2 ships resolved to set off again in a northeasterly direction to a spot where their maps showed the Solomon Islands to be, and leaving the coast of New Zealand behind them.
We had resolved to raise our anchors immediately and by an east course to run to the longitude of 220 degrees, following the previous resolution, departing then to the north. Or indeed direct to the north, as far as a southern latitude of 17 degrees. Good weather, and the wind east by south and east-southeast with a topsails breeze.
With open sea to the east and with a strong southeasterly current, those on board the Heemskerk and the Zeehan believed they were now bound for the Solomon Islands and the eastern end of New Guinea. In fact, they were too far to the east. On the 19th of January, they again sighted land. Commodore's log.
Afternoon, about 2 o'clock, saw land, and had it from us east by north about 8 miles. This island appears like 2 women's breasts.
The Dutch had encountered the islands of Tonga. On the 21st of January, the ships found a good anchorage in 25 fathoms. This was the island of Tongatavu, which they gave the name Amsterdam. The bay in which they anchored they named Van Diemen's Bay. That same day, friendly contact was made with the inhabitants of the island, and provisions were obtained by bartering.
On the 22nd day, in the morning early, a crowd of canoes again came to the ship, with coconuts, yams, plantains, bananas, pigs, and fowls, which we bartered. To wit, a young pig for a small fathom of dungaree, a hen for a nail, a chain of beads for coconuts.
The ships, now fully provisioned, continued north and reached the northern islands in the Tongan archipelago. Here they anchored off the island of Namuka, which they named Rotterdam. Again, friendly contact was made with the local inhabitants. Tasman, however, considered these people to be so primitive that he hesitated to call them human beings. His attitude was formed in part by observing the wanton behaviour of the Namukan women. Henrik Halbos, ship's surgeon, gives this account.
With the men came also many women on shipboard. These were uncommonly big, but amongst all stood out 2 frightful giantesses, one of whom had a moustache. Each desired fleshly intercourse. Other women felt the sailors shamelessly in the trouser front, and indicated clearly what they wanted.
Tasman also took a dim view of the thieving committed by the Tongans, and admonished his officers and crew accordingly.
We have found that some, yes, even officers, do not observe their appointed watch, which often could lead to danger. Whosoever after this be on the watch or lookout is found sleeping, or otherwise without proper attention, shall be beaten. The second time, in addition to the beating, also fined a month's wages. For the third occasion, deprived of 6 months of his due pay. And the fourth time, of rank and wages.
On the 1st of February, well provisioned and with casks full of water, Tasman again set sail.
For the all-powerful God be greatly thanked and praised. We have considered it appropriate to pursue our voyage. Therefore, this morning, early, raised the anchors and ran north, with a fairly good breeze, for the more easterly hand.
The ship set sail from Namuka and set a northerly course. On the 6th of February, they reached Fiji, but were unable to find a suitable anchorage. From Fiji, they steered a northwesterly course. The summer was fast drawing to a close, and Tasman and his officers resolved to maintain a northerly course towards the better-known parts of New Guinea and the Indonesian archipelago. On the 22nd of March, having made good progress, the ships again sighted land. This was an island, part of the large atoll Ontong Java. A further 2 days' sailing brought them to the Tau Islands. For 2 months more, the ships sailed along the north coast of New Guinea towards Batavia. By the 15th of June, the ships were safely at harbour in Batavia. Governor-General van Diemen and his council had some difficulty in making up their minds as to the merit of Tasman's discoveries. Their initial reaction was that the exploration had been interesting, but far too hasty and superficial. The Supreme Government also regarded Tasman's theories about Staatenland, as the supposed open route to the gold-rich coast of Chile, as unproven. In a resolution of the 4th of September 1643, the Supreme Council recorded their uncertainty.
We note that the Commodore has been, to some extent, remiss in investigating the situation, configuration, and nature of the lands and peoples discovered, and left the main part of his task to be executed by a more persistent successor.
The ambivalent attitude of the authorities to Tasman's voyage was made even more evident by their resolution of the 13th of January 1644, which determined that a further expedition was necessary. Tasman and Fisher were effectively instructed to again attempt to seek a channel between New Guinea and Australia, the very part of their 1642 orders which they had failed to carry out.
Less than 7 months have passed, and my husband is ordered on yet another voyage. I fear his masters press too hard, and look less favourably than they might on all his good intentions and achievements.
Tasman was given 3 vessels, the yachts Limen and Zimau, and a small flyboat, the Berak. Fisher was given command of the Limen. The ships left Banda on the 29th of January 1644. Tasman followed a route already explored along the south coast of New Guinea. Again, fate was not kind to him. He sailed past the Torres Strait, believing it to be only a deep inlet. He saw no signs of valuable resources and encountered only naked, beach-roving wenches. In failing to discover the Torres Strait, Tasman compounded the mistaken belief that Australia and New Guinea were part of the same landmass. The ships sailed from the Gulf of Carpentaria along the coast as far as Endraxland. Again, it was a superficial reconnaissance. On his return to Batavia in August, it was apparent to Van Diemen and the Supreme Government that the results of the expedition were much less than had been desired.
In conformity with our project concerning the investigation and ascertaining the inner coast of Nova Guinea, they have found nothing profitable. What is on and in this southern part remains unknown, because the people have done nothing other than sail along the coast. We shall have everything investigated more closely by more vigilant and more courageous persons than so far have been used for this. Investigating land is not everybody's work.
Van Diemen's disappointment that Tasman had not ventured inland was in part derived from his high hopes for a more ambitious expedition to Chile, with gold and silver mining as the prize. These hopes were dashed, and Tasman's discoveries produced no economic profit at all for the company. Tasman was eventually rewarded for his efforts with a seat on the Council of Justice, the company's highest court in Asia. Yet his reputation was to be further damaged, and he was destined to fall from grace. Over the following years he was dispatched on minor expeditions and diplomatic missions. Sadly, they resulted in a growing reputation for extreme brutality. In April 1645, Van Diemen died, and Tasman found himself without a mentor and out of favour with his peers and masters. In April 1648, he was entrusted with the important command of a military expedition against the Spanish in the Philippines. The expedition comprised 8 ships, manned by 900 sailors and 250 soldiers. The plan was to intercept a convoy of Spanish ships returning from Mexico laden with silver and attack it off Cabo Espiritu Santo. However, nothing came of the venture. The Spanish managed to evade Tasman, and he had to content himself with destroying already deserted fortifications. On his return to Batavia in January 1649, the Supreme Government was not at all impressed with his performance. But even worse was to come.
Abel Jansson Tasman, you're accused of mistreating one Conrad Janssen, sailor, on the evening of the 28th of August, 1649. You're accused of the attempted hanging of Conrad Janssen, and in so doing are guilty of criminal misconduct.
Allegations of criminal misconduct were made against Tasman in respect of an incident that occurred in the Philippines. He was accused of criminally mistreating a sailor. The public prosecutor at the Council of Justice was Johann Corneas. He prosecuted the case ex officio as a normal criminal case based on his investigations. He found Tasman's behavior uncommonly repugnant.
It is alleged that whilst returning to your camp, after banqueting and carousing, you, Abel Jansson Tasman, commander of the flagship Banda, did come across 2 sailors who by order of their officers were rightly going about their business ashore. Whereupon you saw fit to attempt to hang by the neck Conrad Janssen by making a halter and tying it around the youth's neck, and by your own hand did hang the youth from a nearby tree. You are also accused of subsequently ordering the vice-commander to hang a second youth.
Had it not been for Tasman's second-in-command refusing the order and restoring control, the youth would have died. For this act, Tasman was suspended from duty and stripped of his rank of Commodore. He was declared unfit for public office and made to confess his guilt in public. He was required to pay the equivalent of a year's salary to Conrad Janssen, the sailor he'd attempted to hang, and was fined a further 150 reals. He was also ordered to bare his head in a public session of the court. Tasman's conviction had serious consequences on his social standing. In 1648, he had been elected an elder of the Reformed Church in Batavia. As a result of the seriousness of his conviction, the church refused him the right to take communion. Tasman took umbrage and broke with the church completely. He continued in the service of the Dutch East India Company, finally being reinstated to the rank of Commodore on the 5th of January 1651. He fell foul of the authorities yet again, however, when he became embroiled in a duel with a Frenchman in 1653. He found himself suspended again, and that year left the company's employment. He owned land in Batavia and lived in the city's most prosperous neighbourhood. In his last years, he became a co-owner and master of a small ship which traded along the coast of Java. But he was not by any means a wealthy man. In 1667, he made a will and bequeathed money to the poor of Lutgast, where he was born, to his wife, and the children of his daughter from his first marriage. His daughter, Klaski, received nothing. Tasman's name is indelibly imprinted on the map of the South Pacific region. It lives in Tasmania, the Tasman Sea, and in geographic features such as Mount Tasman, Tasman Bay, the Tasman River, and the Tasman Glacier. Abel Jansson Tasman died in the autumn of 1659.
You've been listening to Fair Winds to the South Seas by Brian Millard, featuring Paul Robinson as Abel Tasman, Ken Blackburn as Anthony Van Diemen, and John Callan as Pilot Major Francois Vischer. with Helen Medlin, Ross Duncan, Derek Payne and Gilbert Goldie. The production was recorded by Ian Gordon and directed by John O'Leary.
Every now and then in a nation's history, a moment in time is so intensified that it stands out vividly from the rest. These are the milestones, the turning points of progress in the life of a nation. So it is in the story of our two greatest allies. The USA commemorates the founding of its independence on July the 4th, and the USSR on November the 6th. This year, 25 years after the founding of the new Russia.
Such times of climax have been well described by Mr. Henry A. Wallace, Vice President of the United States of America, in May this year, when speaking of the march of events in this present war.
This time, the common man in all lands will build a new world. The march of freedom of the last 150 years has been a long, drawn-out people's revolution. There was the American Revolution of 1775, the French Revolution of 1789, the Latin American Revolution of the Bolivarian era, the German, or rather European Revolution of 1848, and the Russian Revolution of 1917. Each spoke for the common man on terms of blood on the battlefield. But the significant thing is that people broke their way to the light.
Today in the Capitol building, Washington, USA, is a bronze tablet bearing the mightiest words for liberty that perhaps have been spoken. But no bronze tablet is needed, for they are burned into a nation's heart, into the sinews of the struggle for freedom throughout the world.
America's Declaration of Independence was written by Thomas Jefferson back in 1775, and it is remembered while men fight for better conditions upon the earth.
When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them one with another, and to assume among the powers of earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed.
That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
Man is endowed by his Creator with certain unalienable rights.
Certain unalienable rights.
Among these are life, liberty, and happiness.
That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends,
it is the right of the people.
The right of the people to alter or abolish it.
And to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as they seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
Their safety and happiness.
Safety and happiness.
Safety from the fear of war.
Happiness in a job they know they can do and hold.
The American Revolution laid foundations of a new world and an idea where men could not be governed, but should govern themselves in democracy. Government of the people and for the people and by the people.
Certain unalienable rights which men fight for, that they may have life, liberty, and happiness.
The wheel turns.
Centuries pass in a pageant of many ages.
It is November 1917. Another nation throws off its chains.
A bowed man rises from the weight of misgovernment and intolerance.
No, a child takes its first hesitant steps towards safety and happiness, towards its unalienable rights for its nation and for the peoples of the world.
In 10 days that shook the world, the Russian people staked everything in the two vast and simple desires of safety and happiness, and embarked on the tremendous adventure of wresting the power of government from the Tsar and of giving it back to the people.
Only the slow rhythm of the old Russian national anthem reminds us of what had gone before. The misery, the oppression, the cheap glory of those who had, and the even cheaper, desperately cheaper poverty of those who had not.
But in November 1917, that music was the swan song of an age, the last melancholy whisper of a regime that was passing out forever. The overture of the new rings out on November 6, 1917.
Arise, ye starvelings, from your slumbers. Arise, ye criminals of wrongs. For reason in revolt now thunders, and at last ends the age of cants. Now away with all superstitions, servile masters, arise, arise. We'll change forthwith the old conditions, and spurn the dust to win the prize. And comrades, come rally, and the last fight let us face. The internationals unite the human race. And comrades, come rally, and the last fight let us face. The internationals unite the human race.
25 years ago in Russia, time ran fast. But with the rousing song of New Russia, there is the spirit of a new age.
And there the mighty figure of Lenin. Remember him, leading, directing, interpreting, as Jefferson did, as George Washington did, as Cromwell did, as Churchill does for us.
Remember Lenin's words? Fine words, those. They hold the philosophy behind Russia's progress, of the progress of a free people. Listen.
Man's dearest possession is life, and since it is given to him to live but once, he must so live as to feel no torturing regrets for years without purpose. So live as not to be seared with the shame of a cowardly and trivial past. So live that dying he can say, all my life and all my strength were given to the finest cause in the world, the liberation of mankind.
Those were Lenin's words. All his life and all his strength were given to the liberation of mankind. Now you know what kind of a man Lenin was, and why the Russian Revolution succeeded as the American Revolution, as it must have succeeded with men like him. Now you know why this week in Russia, even in the midst of war, the crowd can sing as they swing past Lenin's tomb in Moscow.
Morning crimson tints the glory of the ancient Kremlin wall. With the dawn awakes our city of its ancient factory cold. Streets are filling with our people, fresh the breezes like a song, and we greet familiar landmarks as we gaily troop along. Oh, Moscow mines are proud and fine, your sweet life and love the time, through life alone, red flag is found. Great central of Soviet land, ever brighter grows the sunshine as it nears the noonday hour. Woman strong, its spring rays beaming, mighty emblem of us all. Tramp of machine in the distance, martial music fills the air. Stalin's great red army swinging into stride across Red Square. Oh, Moscow mines, oh, proud and fine, your sweet light and love the shine, new life around, Red Square is found. Great central of our Soviet land, old Moscow mine, so broad and fine, your streets with light and laughter shine, new life around, Red Square is found, great center of our Soviet land.
And when the government of the Soviets of Russia had been established after the revolution...
A government of the people, for the people, and by the people.
Yes, the people. The people of the USSR, as it now becomes, the Union of Socialist Soviet Republics. The people of Russia set out in years of purpose to build their country.
Their country on the basis that all men were created equal, as in the American Declaration of Independence.
They built in the newness of time,
in the strength of a growing ideal.
Russia of the 1920s, the 1930s.
And the leaders of the country, the people of today.
Artisans, engineers,
airmen.
Women in industry, working on equal wages with men.
Builders of the new Russia, which rises like a phoenix from the ashes of the old.
And children, the future people of the USSR.
Through the fields.
And the factories.
And the townships and the mines.
To their own homes.
There they go singing.
The song of a brave new world.
Of their country.
Their country made free.
So mighty, so vast and so free, determined, alert and prepared, our plans well in hand for defense of our land, should the guns of invaders be heard. For our freedom, for our future, we shall work and we shall fight, all together, all together. In our unity strong light, for our freedom, for our future, we shall work and we shall fight. All together, in our unity city, all might. For our freedom, for our truth, we shall work and we shall fight. For together, in our unity, all might.
1925, 26, 27, 30, 34, 35, 36, on through succeeding years. The first 5-year plan, the second 5-year plan, and the USSR takes her place in the world, in the modern world.
Civilized, industrial Russia.
Russia of highways, dams, railways.
The bustle of big cities where once, before 1917, there had only been a picturesque barbarity.
New machinery.
New houses.
New people.
Airmen.
Engineers.
Technicians.
Students.
Agricultural experts.
Men and women.
Women and men.
Working together.
Singing together.
Jewel deep set in the great heart of freedom, pointing the weave of brave banners unfurled, gem of desire to the millions yet striving, the red star of Russia is lighting the world. Many years hidden from eyes that have hungered, wholly besmeared by the fingers of greed. Myriad lights of pretense having failed to the red star of Russia. We turn in our need. Bravely it shines to the weak and the halting, brightly to visions once clouded in tears, keen to the clever and kind to the caring, yet cold to the liars who strangled the years. Look to the east, then, ye lovers of freedom, mark there the brilliance of darkness deferred. Lift up your eyes and your hearts and your souls, where the red star of Russia is lighting the world.
So they sang in peacetime in Moscow's Red Square on the anniversary of the revolution before the nation's leaders.
And the nation's leaders, the freely elected representatives of the Soviets?
There on November the 6th, the day which commemorates the same spirit as America's 4th of July, France's July 14th, the leaders of the Soviets review the life, activity, and work of a new, energetic people.
But if you look closer at modern Russia, you will behold in the land and in the cities the same faces.
Faces that bear a close resemblance to those who fought in the Tsar's uniform in the last Great War, who sang at the old-time Russian festivals.
Those who fought and died in the battles of the Revolution.
The same faces.
But a different people.
A different country.
A new, civilized nation.
Bound together by the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and happiness.
A free country.
A country they fought for in years of purpose to make free.
Bound in silence, will a slave forever be. He who bears his chains in patience cannot shall live for many days. We shall stand the flag above on the earth of his battle.
But then,
after the bustle of factory machines,
after the parading of modern troops,
after a bare 23 years of peace in which to prove the Russian experiment,
death comes along dancing, mocking the wheat fields of the Ukraine,
the oil fields of the Caucasus,
Leningrad, Rostov, Moscow, Stalingrad. Stalingrad is Calvary.
But still the song comes from 1,000 Russian throats.
1 million.
2 million.
3.
6.
10.
12 million and more under arms. And in the factories behind the arms, the entire strength and reserve of Russia.
Thrown in to save the world.
And so remember Lenin's words. Remember them now. The man who made Russia for her people.
Who lived that dying he can say, all my life and all my strength were given to the finest cause in the world, the liberation of mankind.
There is victory of life over death, over the influences of the past. Life brims over on the battlefield of freedom as life gushes forth, giving its strength, all its strength, for the cause.
The song surges up again.
The march goes forward to liberty, freedom, and the enjoyment of happiness. Death retreats and fades away, fades away.
Tomorrow brings forth it with steel, force, and force, how dictators stand seeking for plunder, in defense of our land, of our free Soviet land, for our people their answer will thunder. On the land, in the skies, for the ocean, rings the slogan that tells of our might. If tomorrow brings forth, then tomorrow we march, so today let's be ready to fight.
They are not alone.
America is with them. The USSR with the USA.
Yes, buddy, we're right here behind you in the same fight.
China is there.
And all the free peoples of oppressed Europe.
Free peoples on the seas, in the skies,
in the factories.
Women in the homes.
People around the world fighting with the same idea to defeat fascism and establish free government among the people of the world.
I'm there.
And I'm there.
And I'm there.
And I'm there.
I'm there.
And I'm there. Great Britain is there, and her Commonwealth, and her leader. Remember, not many people are ever going to forget that the Prime Minister of Great Britain, an old man of 68, took a plane and flew across skyways endangered by enemy planes to visit Stalin in Moscow. Stalin didn't go to see Churchill. Remember that. Churchill went to see Stalin. It took a big man to do that. It took a big man to say what he did. 3 big men are in this story. Jefferson, we told you about him at the beginning of the program. Lenin, we told you what he said too. Churchill, who said,
"Come then, let's do the task. Let's do battle and to toil. Let's fill the armies, rule the air, pour out munitions, strangle the U-boats, sweep up the mines, plow the land, build ships, guard the streets, succor the wounded, lift up the downcast, honor the brave. Let us go forward together, all parts of the empire. There is not a week, not a day, not an hour to be lost."
They are grand words. They have a grand meaning. The United Nations are going forward together to a free world, a brave new world where we, who hold these truths, that man who is born equal shall have equal safety and happiness, will be made free. That is what we are fighting for.